Hi all, and welcome to another week of An Evening with Thomas, and our guest is Alan James. And Alan has had an interesting life in many ways. He's been part of a band, rose up the corporate ladder in London, and headed back home to Ireland to create what you are familiar with him, and Open Your Mind Radio. And the two guys are the guys with no surnames, Stephen George and Alan James. So we'll look forward to hearing from Alan in a minute. But I need to put out an update. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of absolute BS being mentioned on the alternative media that I think this will kind of lead in, because we'll be covering some aspects of this during the show. It's not necessarily totally all about Alan's life. He wants to talk about many different things about all of us, rather than just about his life, although we will touch on it. But I did an update this morning, and for those of you who don't have the benefit of Facebook or MeWe, this is what I put. As you will all know, I rarely delve into the alternative media streams or sites for reasons I've covered many times on the show. I decided this week and the last couple of days to check out a few of the articles and a few of the sites to see for myself what is being stated and by whom. Now, this feels like 2013 again to me. It's the loop time again. Now, admittedly, I have an advantageous position with regards to getting intel from various sources who over time have been proven to be far more right than they have wrong. We are in another up-curve wave of activity that's already started. Incidents in Texas, incidents in Saudi Arabia, and exposure of the elites' offshore accounts have all taken place today. So after a relatively short lull in the past week or so, they've decided to ramp up the activity, and this brings in the agency scriptwriters, which are designed to throw you off track with their sleight of hand knowledge, diversionary thought streams, and outright bullshittery. They are not in good shape currently, and this is why they are ramping up the false light and promises again. So you will all drop your guard and wait for the Saviour programme. Will there be arrests? It's already happened in many countries already. Some of it has been exposed on the THI shows. Will there be big arrests? Good question, and I advise to exercise caution on that with the comments made in the last show. I know it's not what you wanted or I wanted to hear, but apart from the entity known as Hillary, that is currently the case. Can that change? Absolutely. But I will not be promising anything that currently doesn't have concrete proof. We've had far too many promises of this and that, and I, for one, will not be adding to it. Yes, putting out sensational stories gets you extra clicks and likes, but this is not a bloody popularity contest. We are in a war situation, whether you like that or you don't. It is what it is, period. And it's about the all, not one person or one group. So I will continue to say things how they stand and not butter up intel or sensationalise stuff for personal attention. Anon, or formerly known as Anonymous, former white hats, former FBI, former CIA, former lieutenants are all part of their system. Will they have some things correct? Yes. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. The key is for you to take out what you need out of that information and not rest all your hopes on all the information contained. Some of these people may have good intentions, but they are being led astray by rogue elements they don't comprehend. Drake was a victim of that back in 2012 through 2014. Clowns muddying the waters. Lots has been done and lots has been achieved. Remember how each of you were back in 2012 with regards to knowledge, learning the depths and the intricacies, and learning about yourself, how much you've developed. All that has changed for each of you, and that has had an impact on the overall picture, and we must not lose sight of that fact. Things will happen that are beneficial, things that will happen that are not, but we must stand strong against the onslaught of mind effery and bullshittery, whilst we have all learned so much as to how the agency scriptwriters chart their course. We, as the way showers, must show our own course in our own path and quit following theirs. And I thought that was important, and this is Alan's show, and I don't want to take up too much of Alan's time, because it is his show, but I thought it was important enough for that to go out today, and we'll now get on with the show. Alan, are you there? I'm doing fine. So, of course, you've just done a show. Can you tell us a bit about that show? No sound.
No sound on Alan.
In programs, and we were talking about finding the balance. He said that's why there's a lot of mental issues out there, because people are obviously not dealing with the shadow self, and they're not understanding what's going on. So if people are interested in that subject matter, obviously they can tune in to the podcast, and it'll be on YouTube tomorrow. But he was confirming a lot of stuff that you've been saying, Thomas, so good information. That's
good. Well, so just hearing of sound issues again doesn't change.
Is that the pop-up? I have a pop-up message thing here that's popping in the background. You're probably picking that up, are you?
No, apparently I just had to change the settings back with someone decided to switch the settings off again.
Oh, did they? Okay, well, that's nice of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
It'd be nice of them to let us know.
You know, I find it funny. I know it can be infuriating, but to me, I'm long past being interested in what they do, because it's a sign of the desperation to me that they have to mess with people's radio shows and play games. You know.
I'm not that. I have to let them know I'm not that interesting. So
well, we think you are. So.
Thanks.
It's them that's not interesting. They're completely boring. These are the same clowns that still think they're going to do the RV. They've failed over 1,000 times, but they still think it's going to happen again next Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. If it doesn't work, it's Wednesday morning, and on it goes again. So.
I'm just flattered that they think I'm so interesting that they want to stop or affect the actual broadcast. Fair play to you. If you think my life is interesting, fair play to you. But you're sad if you do, But okay, right. Where shall we start?
Right. Maybe you can just give us a brief bio on. I covered some of it, the band and corporate ladder, and then going on to OYM, and then we'll get into. How you grew up with an open-minded father, different things from there.
Yeah, well, the three topics that I want to touch on, which are the main things in my life, are the music business, the corporate world, and the spiritual side. And they all interact, and I've learned from them three to get to where I am now. And basically... We talk about the fluid belief system, myself and Steve. After 7.5 years running OIM, we've realised that it's all about, keeping an open mind, challenging your belief system, which is very healthy, and having a fluid belief system. So if something new comes in that goes against what you believed yesterday, well, if the facts are there and you're happy with it, then change. So it's got to do with, your belief system's got to do with your perception as opposed to intelligence. And I think people get confused and they think, why are these academics not getting it? They're very intelligent people. It's nothing got to do with intelligence. It's got to do with your perception. And your perception is what you get from your friends and your family and the education system and everything else. For me, I was lucky growing up because my father was, he was very open-minded, regarding spiritual and UFO stuff, and he had his own spiritual experiences in his life. He should have been dead a few times because of certain things, drowning and car crashes and stuff. But obviously they didn't want him to die, so he was lucky. But he was very open-minded. And he brought me up to believe, to think that, when people say, oh, I can't do that, his kind of idea is, well, how do you know you can't do it if you don't try it? Try it first and see if you can do it, rather than just accept you can't do it, without even trying. So that was a kind of a very good starter for me growing up. And because he was the kind of person that was, he could turn his hand to anything. Whether it's woodwork, glasswork, carpentry, metalwork, welding. I mean, he could basically do the whole lot, And I grew up as a kid, seeing this and being in the shed and helping him out and doing things. So the whole idea of I can't do that, it kind of didn't wash with him, which is great because that meant that, we didn't have that kind of negativity. So I won't be going too much in depth because I don't want to bore people, but there's certain key points in them 3 locations, them 3 areas that I think are important to touch on, and from a learning curve. And jump in, Thomas, if you want me to.
No, that's fine. Did you find that was beneficial to you? Because many of us have had parents that are not open-minded to reality that a lot of people don't think exists, and so did you find that helped you on your journey?
Yeah, totally.
In many aspects.
Yeah, I just think, the fact that he would, say if a UFO program came on TV, we kind of go, oh yeah, we'd look at that. Or if there was a sci-fi movie on, we'd look at that, so it did keep me to a certain level open-minded to them subjects. Now, I didn't know much at the time because there was no internet and stuff like that. I mean, I'm an old fart, Yeah. So internet wasn't around at the time. But I had an interest. I always had an interest in ghosts, and I even, believe it or not, I still have certain ghost books that I had as a kid. I still have them. And it's interesting, vampires and werewolves and all that stuff. So I was always into that. I always kind of liked that thing, and I was kind of very interested in it. And I think that kind of keeps an open mind to it. I didn't know at the time, but I was opening my perception and keeping an open mind. And sci-fi, all the normal stuff that kids are into, So I think, I think.
So basically, what you've done, your father showed you the doors, but you walked through them.
Yeah, and I think that was a good catalyst for everything else that has happened from then on. Keep them open-minded, so I'll just the best thing, I suppose, at the end of the day, what I'll do is I'll just jump into the certain areas so we can get through them. But I got involved in the music business. I started to learn how to play drums at the age of 15, and got into a band, and we did all the band thing, and to speed up things, we got to a stage where I was playing professionally, and we had a road crew and we had a manager, and we were doing gigs, and one instant actually is one of the worst instances where we actually got stopped on the Northern Ireland border, and we had a gun pointed at us. In the 80s, I think it was the 80s or the 70s, there was a band in Ireland called the Miami Show Band, and three of the band members got killed And I don't know if you remember that, Thomas, do you?
Yeah, this is the height of all the troubles, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, with the paramilitaries, the IRA and the UDF and all the fun and games surrounding religion that was going
That's
on
it.
there. Yeah.
That's it, exactly. Now, the bands down the south of Ireland knew that the money was good in the north of Ireland, but there's also there's always a risk. But, so basically we decided to go up and take a chance. And on the way back home after the gig, to cut a long story short, we got pulled up. Anyway, nothing happened, but, something could have happened. So that was the first and last time we went up to do a gig up there. There you go. It's just one of them experiences on the music, being in the music business. But the one thing I kind of learned quite quickly in the music business is that it's 95% business and 5% music. And you're on this emotional roller coaster. And 1 minute your manager is saying, oh yeah, you're going to be supporting Hazel O'Connor, or you're going to be supporting Hot Chocolate. And then the next minute, you're not getting that gig, but there might be another gig. And it's this kind of emotional roller coaster that you're on. And I really was getting kind of fed up with it. Although we had a good setup, we had a good band, good roadies, and the manager was okay. It's just the nature of the business.
Basically what you're saying, you didn't have the Tavistock group behind you.
No, we didn't. We just did our own thing. But we did get offered a record contract. And unfortunately, the keyboard player in the band at the time, who I've just recently hooked up with on Facebook, funny enough, he was too young to sign the contract because he was still in school. And he wanted to go to college. So we said, oh, okay, there'll be another contract, down the line. But the band went its own separate way. And one of the guitarists in the band, who I was good friends with, he decided that he wanted to go to London. And he ended up getting a job in London. And he said to me, well, why don't you go to London? And I said, well, first of all, sorry, I'm going to backtrack a bit. While I was doing the music business, while I was doing gigging and stuff like that, I was also doing a course a course that was the first time it was ever run in Ireland. And it covered electronics, programming, administration, and social psychology. And that was a full-time course. So we were doing gigs, lucky enough, in the evenings and on the weekends, which suited me fine for that course.
Yeah.
This is where I got kind of I did the training in the kind of social psychology of things, and I was fascinated by that. Yeah. Fascinated. And why I carried it on. Sorry, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's not all sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Then, some people go down that path, and you had the fortitude to realise that there's life after that, and life beyond it as well, and so you went and did that course.
Yeah, well, see, the idea of doing the course is I kind of had my head screwed on. There was a lot of people at the time saying, oh, you have to sell your soul and you have to go into the music business and you have to give it your all and, sell up and that's it. And I said to myself, well, look, if it doesn't work out for me, I want to have something to fall back on. So the course that I did obviously involved the electronics programming stuff, was an IT course with the social psychology thrown in, which is brilliant. So I said, right, okay, now I'm doing the music. If that doesn't work out, I've something to fall back on. Yeah. That's basically, that was, at that time, that was my thinking. So I did the course. Course was finished, and I did get a job, and then there was redundancy, and then we went back full time doing the gigging again. And then the guitarist said, well, I'm going to move to London. I've got a job over there. So he said, why don't you come? And I said, well, I don't really have that much experience, but hey ho, I can stay doing, the band split up. So I ended up going back. I ended up going on the dole. And I said, I could stay here in 1980s, Dublin, Ireland, where there's a recession and there's mass unemployment, and stay here and just be a statistic, or chance my arm and go to London and just see what happens. So if I buy myself an open ticket, if I get fed up with London, I can fly back. Right? So there you go. So So with and at the time when I sold a few bits and pieces. I only had a few quid in my pocket. I had to sell me drums, and I had a few quid in my pocket. I had no job to go to. I didn't even know where I was staying on the day I flew over to London. I didn't even know where I was staying. I just knew that I had to go. So I jumped on the plane, a few quid in the pocket, landed in the airport, and my mate met me there, and he goes, "Oh look, my sister lives down in Kent. We'll kip out in her house there for a couple of days, and then we'll find the place, you know." So we did get a place, and it was in the East End of London. Sorry, I'm talking.
No, carry on. In essence, just want to make a point on that, because Ireland, well, even the north of England, is so far removed from the entity and the city known as London. It's a big step. So in essence, you're charting your own path of your ancestors in Ireland that went to Ellis Island. It's the same concept, isn't it? Yes, there was people there, but there's people you don't know. You know, there was people here in America. The fact that they bludgeoned them. So in essence, you performed your own Ellis Island because London is different. You know, it's like going from New York to Maine. It's not the same, you know. So it's a big step that you took. So I just wanted to interact on that.
No, that's cool. And obviously moving out of the parents' house and living in the flat, but also moving country to do it, was a massive step. The one thing I just want to add before we leave Ireland behind on the music business, I learned a very valuable lesson while I was doing the full-time playing over in Ireland with the band. I learned all about ego. Because ego, you know, we all have ego, but we should be able to control the ego, not let the ego control us. Yeah. And ego creeps up on you, very slightly. And when you're in the music business and people are coming up and go, "You're great, you're brilliant, you're great, you're brilliant," and then your manager is putting out PR stuff which is hyping you up, and you're reading it and you actually believe what he's written, which is the whole idea of PR and marketing. They hype up everything more than what you are. And
it's the illusion, isn't it?
It's the illusion. And I learned a very, very valuable lesson. And I did have, at the age of 21, you got a good band. The band was pretty good for what we did. And then you had attention from the girls and all that kind of stuff. And so the ego, not knowing any different, the ego does kick in and you become a bit of an a-hole when you end up having the ego. Yeah. And the other thing is that it's very hard to tell somebody who has an ego that they have an ego, because they'll tell you they don't have an ego. Yeah. So I was kind of put straight. I had a musician, a distant relative who's a musician who was on a higher level than I was on the music game, and let's just say he put me straight on it, and that was a very, very valuable lesson I felt I learned regarding ego.
It wasn't a music lesson, it was a life lesson.
It was a life lesson.
We speak often, I know you listen to some of all our shows about the balance. It's the key to everything. It's not about eliminating all the dark, it's about providing a balance of both sides, and the same applies with the ego. If you go out of that off-balance zone, it can quite quickly run away with you. The same applies with depression. You've gone off balance, and it can quite quickly run away to 90-10 on the pendulum, and it's a long way back. And this is why we talk about staying in that 45-55 balance, whatever level we're talking about. It's all about the balance.
Totally, and I learned a valuable lesson, and maybe that's why I had to do that, because I suppose. When you get to a certain age and you look back on the things that you've done in your life and the lessons you've learned, and maybe we are being project managed by a higher source. I know I've been told on numerous occasions that I am. And OIM is one of the things which we'll get to talk about that. But yes, definitely, I learned about the music business, but I also learned definitely about ego. And that's why when people talk to me about it, I'll say, look, I've first-hand experience on it because I was there and I was a bit of an a-hole for it. But I learned, and I learned about humility, which was the opposite to that, and that was the learning, that was the balance,
What was, of course, there was a lot of funding that came from America, but I'd like you to give your perspective on what life was like in Ireland and Northern Ireland in the 70s and 80s. I remember, I've been to Belfast. I went twice, and I remember driving south to a small village, and you're going down those country lanes, and I remember, and you go over the hill in this country lane, and I thought, I've seen this on the BBC with the IRA, got snipers and all this stuff. What was it like growing up, and has it changed?
Oh, it's definitely changed for the better. It wasn't nice because, I have a relative that lives up there, and she has been up there for a long time. And I remember going up in the 80s when there was the border, the customs was on the border, and you're walking around Argos, in the shops, and there's British Army guys with machine guns right beside you. Which is a bit worrying. Now, I remember in the early 70s when there was bombs gone off. I didn't think there was about 17 bombs in 1 week. A lot of the kids, the Catholic kids, were put on buses and sent down to Dublin. And my parents took on one of these young lads. He was near enough the same age as me, and I thought that was great, and we were, having fun for a couple of weeks until the bombings stopped. But yeah, you go up the north and there'll be border checks and your car be checked, and there'll be barracks there, and there'll be, it just wasn't very pleasant at the time.
It's life in a war zone, in essence, isn't it?
It is, and it's on your doorstep because it's not that far away.
No.
So it wasn't good. What I remember, it's much better now. Obviously, and even going back to the 80s, before I moved over, I went to a family do up there, and I was with myself and a friend of mine and a girl. There was a family member, a girl. And we were walking home from a local pub, and we got jumped on by 3 guys because they heard our accents, and only for the taxi driver who pulled up and we jumped in the taxi, we probably would have got our head kicked in.
Yeah, it's the environment of the system. It's nothing to do with the people. It's this program and the system that's been brainwashed into both sides in Ireland, all in the name of religion again. It's just sad. What I'm encouraged to see. Well, obviously, the bigger bombings have stopped now. There's still paramilitary elements still ongoing, but I think they're more to do with criminal drugs and trafficking now, rather than blowing people to bits. Not that it's any better, but it's just a sad. It's all about, in my opinion, and this has gone on for 400 years in Ireland, which is around about the same time they've started decimating the history of America also. It is basically erasing Ireland's history, because if the full history of Ireland comes out, then your Church of Rome and Church of this and Church of England and all that collapses because of the history. And this is what they've done to all those specific regions around the planet, whether it's been the tribal groups and or the elder races, shall we say, the elder peoples, who have
divide and conquer.
Retain the oral history, which Ireland does, and then the kings and queens, the Vikings, which is the 6 kings. It's nothing to do with Norwegian big hairy beasts. It's 6 kings, and that realm and those houses And of course, the William of Orange wasn't even British; he was Dutch.
Yeah.
And the problem is there's very few people in the north are aware he's actually Dutch and are waving flags. And I'm a Protestant, but I think it's ridiculous. But then I never believed in religion, So I'm glad you brought that up. And it was an awful time. We had it quite close with the bombs in Warrington and Manchester, and there was stuff in London. So
and
no, carry on.
No, I was going to say, even then, I always thought, live and let live. What's the problem? Why are people fighting when there's two religions? It just didn't make sense. Because I remember, actually, funny enough, we were at this family do that I just mentioned, and somebody came up and said, what do you think about something got to do with the politics? And I just said to the guy, look, I'm a musician. I don't get involved in politics. I just play music. Just defuses straight away, I just don't go down that road.
Did they still ask you? I remember some of the things that to ascertain which religion you are, how many brothers and sisters, is one of the first questions. Does that still go on? I remember that.
I remember my brother-in-law saying to me, he said, how do you tell the difference between a Catholic and a Protestant? He said, well, you ask the person to say the word Harry, and if they say Harry, I think you're Catholic, and if you say Harry, you're Protestant, something like that. So before you even get to the A or Y, you get a smack in the mouth,
Yeah. Because it's traditionally known that the Catholics had more children than the Protestants.
Oh,
so
true,
that was one of the first. So if it had more than 5 kids, these are Catholics.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one good thing about being a drummer. I've good rhythm method.
Right, so we get back on, what was it, path of unemployment and top of the ladder, and so you've gone to London, and
okay, so we get on to London, right? And the reason why you played Whitesnake is a very simple reason. Was that went to London, got a flat down the East End of London, and I have to say the East End people were smashing, great people. I mean, you go into the local pub and everybody is respectful, because you don't know whether you're going to get a smack in the teeth with a set of knuckle dusters,
Yeah, it's one of them areas. It's a bit like Liverpool, really. It's rough, but they're also friendly. And just don't upset them.
Exactly. And if you hit into somebody and spill somebody's pint, offer to buy them a pint, because you might be wearing that if you don't do it,
Yeah.
But really smashing people, and got to know a lot of the locals when we were down there. But so the Whitesnake thing, I did end up getting a teaching job in a college over there, teaching IT.
Mm-hmm.
And when they knew I had kind of training in the social psychology, they said, would you do a course for the college and set up a course and teach it? And I said, yeah, no problem at all. So I set up a course, got to do it, psychology, life training skills, body language, stuff like that. And it went down very well in the college. But the reason why I played the Whitesnake was because we used to go out on the weekend and obviously have a good few beers, as you do, and then come home with the pizza, and we'd be be drunk with the pizza. And we used to have the video of Whitesnake Trilogy, the trilogy album, on video, and we'd have that on, and we'd whack that on, and that's one of the songs that's on the album, and we'd be watching that while we were eating the pizza and having the chat and what have you,
so the Whitesnake are along with ABBA from my earlier years. I liked ABBA when it was not prevalent, other people mocked them or just this and that. It wasn't until later in life that ABBA started becoming appreciated as such. But I got into heavy rock and Whitesnake. I've seen Whitesnake probably 16, 17, 18 times live.
Wow. And, I haven't seen them. I'd love to, because now I do like the 80s Whitesnake. Tommy Aldridge is the drummer, and and Adrian Van der Werk, I think, was the guitarist at the time until he had a problem with his hands, and then Steve Vai joined David Coverdale.
Well, the first Whitesnake I saw, 78, and it was Cozy Powell was the drummer.
That's right, yeah.
And
Cozy Powell,
probably the most famous drummer, and the most famous keyboard player, probably, although some would argue different, was John Lord. So it was quite a star-studded lineup, really.
It was, yeah. And of course, poor Cozy got killed on the motorway on the way home. So basically went into London, went off to London, ended up getting a job. Lucky enough I did. I think this was 3 weeks into London, and I rang up and they said, "Oh, send your CV." And I said, "No, I thought the Tube was brilliant. I thought, look, we don't have a tube system in Dublin, and it takes you hours to go from one side to the other. You jump at this tube, and it just takes minutes." So I thought the Tube was brilliant, and I said to them, "No, I'll actually come up and drop it into you." And they said, "Well, if you're coming up, you might as well come up for an interview." Yeah. And so I went up, did the interview. They liked me obviously, and said, "Right." So I started getting involved in teaching and stuff like that. So that was kind of the start of my kind of career, the corporate ladder. Now, I was still doing a few, the gigging. I was still doing a bit of gigging and with bands and playing and stuff like that. And then obviously, one thing leads to another. You change one job, you go to another job. And this was one thing I think we talked yesterday, and I was saying, when the Irish are abroad, they're very hard workers. When they're in their own country, doesn't seem to be the case. And I'm sorry if that upsets some people, but it's, I'm seeing it around me. Being in Ireland, I'm seeing it around me. There's a kind of manana approach, where all the shutters come down at 1 o'clock because they have to have their tea and sandwiches, and they're giving it about the economy, and the customers are knocking on the door trying to give them business and going, "Oh, this is terrible, the economy is terrible. Come back at 2 o'clock." Yeah. And you're thinking, have you never heard the staggered lunch breaks? Yeah. So they shoot themselves in the foot. So, but in Ireland, over in the UK, I've met a lot of Irish people and the like. Now, when I went to the UK, I didn't want to do the obvious thing and go down to, where is it? Cricklewood. Cricklewood is a very Irish area, and loads of Irish people. I wanted to keep away from that. I wanted to learn more about different, multicultural. I wanted to meet different nationalities and do that. I didn't want to be the typical Paddy that went over to Cricklewood and stayed in his own circle of people. I wanted to get away from that.
Yeah, I did the same here. I didn't want to come here and have mini Britain. I didn't come to America to be with the same people. I know there's a comfort in that, and particularly early on, but eventually you get to a point where that comfort has to end. And then, and be with the people. And I would, to quite honest, I'd sooner be with the American people than some of the Brits that came here. And I moved out of the British area altogether. And so I can understand where you're coming from there.
And I think from being a training instructor and teaching and having different nationalities, I mean, some of the nationalities, some of the people could barely speak English, and I had to try and put across the IT to, whether it's a washing machine or cooker, in a way that they could understand training. So I learned a very valuable lesson about teaching, that people make the mistake that, I've met guys who are technically brilliant. They would wipe the floor with me, but never ask them to teach. Just because somebody is very knowledgeable on the subject doesn't mean they're good at teaching. Teaching is an art form. To take the technical and turn it into non-technical. So people always make the mistake, you know all about this, you write the user manual, or you do the teaching. That's a very bad mistake, to assume that just because he can do it, he can teach. I come across it all the time. Teaching is an art form.
It's not done by the book either. I've said this in the show, and I got a bit of flack from a few teachers, but the reality is, from the teachers of 30, 40 years ago, those teachers knew the subject. They didn't need a book. And what you've got now, the ones, unless there's special schools or different schools or paying schools, you haven't got teachers, you've got book readers.
Yeah.
And that's not a fault of the teacher. That's the system. The teachers know the subject.
That's what's happened. Well, they always say, if you can't teach it to a 6-year-old, then you don't know the subject. But what happened later on in that teaching job was that when I was doing teaching it to the people in the classroom, the system then changed where I then become a supervisor, and they were all given books, and they had to go through the book and do what's in the book, and I was only there as a supervisor capacity, and there was an uproar. They were going nuts. They were going, we want Alan to teach us, we're not going to do this. And I could understand their point of view, because it was, you can't be having somebody at the top of the class teaching rather than just giving somebody a book.
Yeah.
So basically, I moved different jobs, and in them roles that I moved in, there was various promotions and achievement awards that I received. Not only from an IT point of view, I suppose there's two kind of people in IT. There's the people that are in IT because they know it's pretty good money, and then there's people in IT because they love computers. I'm a techie. I love techie stuff. I was working 5 days a week and coming home and still doing techie stuff.
Yeah. So it's more like a hobby then. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was being paid for my hobby, and that was enjoyable. And you learn more when you have an interest in it.
Yep.
So, but the one thing that kind of pushed my career up to the senior level was because I had a very good background. I'll not just promote myself, but the evidence is there in the jobs and the promotions and my achievement awards. I was very good at business development. I could go into a company and I could look and see where the problems are.
Yeah.
And I could say, right, you could actually improve that and save money at the same time. And then you had to be able to project manage it, because people don't like change. We were talking about this yesterday, weren't we? Yeah. People don't like change. So to get people to want to change, there's certain ways through project management that you can get them to buy into the change. So that was, again, another skill to be able to get people to buy into the change. And you end up saving money but improving efficiency. And because of certain things I've done in the corporate world, in corporate companies, by doing that and saving the company money, they thought, okay, you know what you're doing, we're going to put you on the next level. So by going through various job roles, I got to the stage where I won't bore you with the stuff in between and all that, but basically I got to the highest I could go in my position, which is IT manager, and acting CIO, which is Chief Information Officer. You couldn't go higher than that. And I like a lot of people, I had the company credit card, company car, and I was traveling extensively through all the offices of it. So there were $1 billion companies, and and different corporate companies I was in. I was doing loads of traveling extensively, so seeing different cultures and everything. Now, I wasn't aware of what we talk about on a daily basis now.
No.
I was still open-minded, but I wasn't kind of aware of it.
It's more difficult when you're in the midst of it to be able to see. You've got to have some sort of an event, a personal event, where you take a step out and something happens, and then you overview. And again, this is something I talk about in the shows.
Yeah.
Whilst you're in the midst of it, you can't see much unless you're really going in there with that concept in mind, and then you can find out bits, but you find out more once you step away from it and go, you know what, that was a pile of crap,
Yeah, exactly. And the realization does kind of did start to kick in. As I say, the corporate world, I didn't kind of buy into the corporate world because of my background. again, something that we mentioned where, I was in a position where it's like the powers that be, on the universal side, what saying, right, what we're going to do is you're going to be unemployed, and you're going to feel like it's what it's like to be unemployed and have no money. And then we're going to bring you up to the top of the corporate world where you're going into boardrooms and you're at the boardroom level. And then what we're going to do is going to pull the carpet out from you, and then we're going to throw you back down to where you have no money again. Yeah. And it's like, and it's all kind of part of the learning.
Yeah.
And very few people there's very few people that I've come across have actually been at a boardroom level on a corporate company. So they don't really know what goes on at that level. No. I've been fortunate to be there to know what goes on. And there's a lot of BS that goes on, and you think you think that they have your best interest at heart and all that. Forget about it. You're just a number, and they, if you fall over and die, they'll have somebody in next week.
Yeah, just a pawn.
Yeah. That's basically it. I mean, I've been in meetings where there's one or two employees being a bit funny about doing certain things, and they're actually thinking, well, how can we get rid of her without getting the HR, pulled in and getting solicitors involved, and seriously, and they have the empire building, they build their empires. And they protect it, and they have everybody keyed up to know what to say and what's going on. And man, and it's mind games, loads of mind games. You just have to cover your arse all the time.
Yeah, it's a full-on program. Again, you'll know more because you've now stepped out of it. But I observed this in social services. I'm probably experienced it the same, where you find. It doesn't matter who you're speaking to; they all spoke in the same tone and intonation, and repeated the same cliched sentences and words. And I'm thinking, I didn't at that point. Going in the 90s, I'd heard about clones, but I'm thinking these people are all copies of one another.
That's it.
Where's the individualism in all this? They're all saying the same things and repeating the same narratives and saying the same cliches, and none of them realise what they're doing.
So they send you off on your team building weekend exercise to all get pally, and the people, the senior managers at the top saying, great, there's a weekend of brainwashing to make sure they do what they're told. Yeah. Now one company in my very, very early days, in a company I worked in, I was 17 at the time, it was an advertising agency, and one of the clients was Bass. And I remember we after work we all went to the pub, and of course all the kind of yes men were buying Bass at the bar. Yeah. And of course I just remember just being me, said, I'll have a pint of Smithwick's, and somebody said, no, you'll have a Bass, and I said, no, I'll have a Smithwick's, and this was in front of the the client. Are you sure you don't want the Bass? No, I'll have a Smithwick's. And I said, not getting it. Yeah. So that didn't kind of go down well.
No, it doesn't. But that's you not allowing them to pull you into the system, their system. You said something yesterday, and I reached the top of the corporate ladder, and I said, no, you reached the top of their corporate ladder.
Exactly.
So even though that's only a small item, it's another example where you decided, you know what, I'm not playing your game. When you look back over certain things, where, no, I'm going to be the rebel. I want what I want, not what they're telling me to have. And this is what we all need to do.
That's it. And the perks, obviously you get a good salary and your company credit card and your company car and the likes of the stuff like that, and that's the incentive from them to make sure you do what you're told. That's just the way it is. They give you the trinkets and you do what you're told. Sod your heart attack or sod your stress or whatever. Are we not paying you enough? Type of thing. Yeah. It would have been nice. I was so busy anyway, I didn't have time to spend any money really, because I was always busy doing something or flying somewhere, or, you know, every week I was going somewhere. And, but it got to a stage where, I had a funny feeling that one of the corporate companies I was working in, was not going as well as they were saying. Remember, I said to you before that when the board of directors are kind of crapping themselves and going, right, business is not going well, what are we going to do? But the board of directors will tell the middle management and the staff, everything's going fine, we're doing great, figures are brilliant. But they're in the boardroom going, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, I got a funny feeling that one of the corporate companies I was in, that was happening. So I kind of said, right, I reckon redundancy is going to be on the cards, because, you know, there's people being going left, right and centre, you know. Yeah. And I think the feeling I got, and I said it to my partner, was that, look, I think we're going to have to make a choice here, because we did kind of talk about moving back to Ireland. Yeah. From London, and it was kind of one of them things. Yeah, we might do that. So we kind of said, well, if anything happens from a job point of view, we'll move back. If it doesn't, then we'll carry on. Now we talk about comfort and discomfort, and a lot of people won't change because they're in their comfort zone. Why? They're kind of saying, why should I change? Because I'm comfortable. I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. So why would I want to change? So generally, for people to wake up, there tends to be something of a discomfort level has to happen. It could be somebody dying, something drastic, job, somebody dying, foreclosure, evictions. Take your pick. And that could be the catalyst to be part of the wake-up process of the universe, kind of saying, now you're going to wake up, and obviously you're not getting it. We want you to wake up. You're not waking up. So you're going to have a discomfort now. So you won't have any choice but to wake up, because you need to wake up what's going on.
So in essence, you know, it's often spoken about on the alternative media about events. And if people only realise the events are not necessarily collective, then they may be personal.
Exactly.
And that's what makes the change.
Yeah. And then, you know, and then you have to think, what do I do now, and why did that happen? And you have questions to ask. But before that actually happened, I was starting to question things anyway, because it was in 2001. And one of the girls that worked in the office, Irene, she's been on the show. She's been on OIM. She's a good friend of mine. If you go to our YouTube archives, you can listen to the interview that we did with Irene. Rainey, I call her. And it was, me and Irene were getting on, and we were talking about, and we were saying, there's something going on in the world, you know. And Irene come along and gave me David Icke's book, The Biggest Secret. And she said, you know, have a read of that. And of course, I did the obvious thing that everybody does because of arrogance and ignorance, right? My arrogance was to say, you know, oh, that guy's a nutcase. He thinks he's Jesus Christ, right? Yeah. And my ignorance was the fact that I didn't know anything about him really, or the book, in the book. But my arrogance was to think that I did know something. Yeah. And it's so many people. So I actually questioned myself. And I said to myself, hang on a minute, you're being a bit arrogant thinking you know about him and the book. And you don't. And I think that's very important. We have to be able to question ourselves. Yeah. There's too many people out there, because we do talk about this psychologically, about how the mind works. I won't go into that. That's something that we have talked about in OIM, and how the mind, because some people perceive not knowing something as a weakness. So instead of saying, I don't know, they cover it up and say, oh, it's a load of BS. Yeah. And we go into the psychology of how the mind works, and we've done that. We have to.
It's the fear of the fear of the unknown.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's just a human thing. It's just some people feel that, you know, not knowing something is a weakness, and they're not confident in their intellect, so they say it's a load of BS or whatever. So I said to myself, right, I'm going to read that book, and I'm going to study all of this, So when I get challenged by somebody in the alternative media or on this conspiracy thing, I can turn around and I can say, I've studied it and it's a load of BS. But the problem is I proved myself wrong because I spent, 5 years after that studying it and going down the rabbit hole, and I proved myself wrong and realised, holy God, there is something in this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably a good time before we go into the next part. We'll have a music break. Where are we next? Kate Bush and Wow. One of your favourites?
Yeah, definitely.
Right, we'll be back shortly with more from Alan James. Enjoy this music break. Hi all and welcome back to An Evening with Thomas with our guest Alan James today from OYM, and that was Kate Bush and Wow. So just before the music break, you were talking about David Icke and how basically that was the avenue that brought you into what we know as the alt media. David Icke was something that I listened to and read when I started out. There wasn't many around then. I think I may be wrong, but I don't think he. I think he admits himself he went too far with some of the statements he made, particularly on that Wogan show. Telling the British public that their queen is a reptilian is quite a step.
It is a bit, for 1 minute you're protesting about water meters and, tax, going up, and all of a sudden you're saying, by the way, your queen's a reptilian.
Yeah.
It was a bit too much information.
And I don't think he meant, I've never heard him describing that, but I don't think he meant he was just him, the Son of God, as he called it. I think if he spoke, he was here now, he says, he would probably say, no, we all are.
Well, that's the idea, and he was just going through his awakening, and he was being bombarded with all information, and he said it himself that he just, it was a man going through a bit of a breakdown as well because of what was going on. Everybody's...
people can say now perhaps he's controlled opposition. I can see the evidence of that. I didn't agree with him hooking up with Alex Jones, who I know is controlled opposition. But he still had the ability to wake a lot of people up in a field that was very limited, and he will have noticed the change in support. I remember him on one interview, he said, I used to play to 3 people and a dog, and then suddenly I'm playing in Wembley Arena. And that's the change in the people, and he kind of laid a path, an uncomfortable path for him, for many of us that are listening to this show today and others in the alternative media, to step outside. You've got to learn to step outside your comfort zone. But he had a fairly high-paying job, £150,000 a year, going back 20, 30 years ago. That's a lot of money now, never mind then. And he basically threw it all away and took this path of educating the public about various things, and perhaps I think he will reflect himself and say maybe some of the things he should have held back, but and stair-step the people into the information, not
mind you. It was if you think about it, in the advertising game and the music game, whether it's good publicity or bad publicity, it's still publicity.
Yeah.
And you get some artists saying the worst thing about people talking about you is people not talking about you.
Yeah.
So he did. So even though the statement about the Queen being a reptilian, people will remember it, and there's a bit of psychology in that.
And maybe he was right.
Well, yeah, this is it. Well, it just gets people thinking. They'll remember him. Put it that way. That's the story I'll sidetrack a little bit. When I first started playing music, we were supported the bass player's dad's band. And I remember asking the drummer of the band, what's the name of the band? And he said, it's called Pork Pie. And I said, that's a bit of a silly name. He said, it is. He said, but I bet you'll remember it. And that was 30 odd years ago. And I still remember it. So there's a bit of kind of, logic in, the whole process of being silly or saying something like that,
Yeah.
So basically, with me reading David Icke, while I was working on my last job before I was made redundant, I started a website called Open Your Mind.
Okay.
And I didn't want to be like everybody else, writing about reptilians or AETs and all that kind of stuff. So I wrote the website from a psychological point of view, because I knew then that the only way that you could kind of speak to people on a level that I did understand is talk to them about human behaviour
On a personal level rather than the content. Yeah.
Because, and we still do that today. It doesn't matter what the content is. How does your mind work and how do you believe or perceive things? So if you speak, because psychology is a study of science, so, again, people say, oh, I have an open mind. And then when you challenge their belief system, they close down straight away. That's the programming.
Yeah. A closed truth bubble, as I call it.
Yeah, exactly.
The truth bubble's not expanded enough. Yeah.
Exactly. And how can you learn if you're stuck in a belief system? And how can you learn if you don't step outside your comfort zone? You only learn when you step outside your comfort zone, and you only learn when you challenge what you believe, wherever that is.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. So when I wrote the OIM website originally, it was all got to do with psychology. The difference between covert and overt. If you have somebody parked down your road in a covert way where they're watching your house and watching you, as long as you don't know about them, they can stay there. But as soon as you know about them and what they're doing, you could go down and approach them and they have to leave. So,
that's
you've had that,
yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. So I wrote the site in a way that was all about the psychology and about learning, about taking something from the conscious and going into putting it into the subconscious. So the website was up and running, and then obviously things happened on the corporate side, and then that was the trigger to say, okay, now I'm in a discomfort zone. So that choice we said we'd make, we made. Plus the fact that I seen the way the England was going. I seen the way the UK was going, and I said we have to leave the UK. It's really going downhill the way what's going on at the moment. So it's the right time to make a move. And at the time, Ireland wasn't a bad option. It is now.
What sort of year was that? Oh.
That was 2005.
Right, okay.
Okay, and before we had all the crap that we had over here in Ireland, that was 2005, before the bubble burst and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so we kind of packed up and we moved over here. And then the decision was made between myself and my partner, who stays at home. We had a young baby. And we just agreed that whoever gets the job first, the other person stays at home. And my partner was the one who got the job first. And I said, that's fine. I can be at home. I can do the house husband bit, and I can run like an online business at home, which suits me fine. So that was the way it was. There's no kind of argument. So I never had one of these issues where the man has to work and the woman has to be at home. I never, equality all the way as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You work as a team, and that's the way it is. But I suppose again, and over all this period of time, you know, when you're in the corporate world, you do an awful lot of training regarding staff management and management training and all that kind of stuff. And I was teaching IT in corporate companies as well to staff members and all that kind of stuff. And so I built up a kind of a vast knowledge on the psychology side and the teaching side and all that kind of stuff. So that all came in handy, you know. So yeah. So I suppose but the corporate company taught me a lot. The corporate company, to do what we do, Thomas, as radio hosts, you know, it's amazing. I remember I was talking to Vin on People's Internet Radio, and Vin was looking for people to do radio shows, and Vin said he had a few people interested, and one guy said, "Oh, that's easy. I'll come on the air and I'll do my own show." And Vin said, "That's fine, okay." So he got them all ready to go, and Vin said, "Right, 3, 2, 1, go," and your man just froze.
Yeah.
As we call it in the CB amateur radio, ham radio side, we call it in mic freeze. Yeah. And he just froze. He just froze because he assumed, well, quite wrongly, that, oh, that's easy, I can get on and I can talk and everything else. And you know yourself, it takes a level of confidence to do what we do. And I think with the fact that I've been myself being a musician and being used to being on stage and being performing in front of people, it had a big kind of help in a confidence level.
What it is getting to a point. It was about. I remember the first show I did. We had issues with the sound, and I was a nervous wreck, to be quite honest, which is unusual for me, as I'm very laid back. And then I was quite glad when it got to a music break. And of course, I just had to sit there to listen to Drake rambling on a bit. So it wasn't too bad. But then when it got to about the third show, I'd forgotten about the audience. And this is why I do these shows, to get people to speak out and you know, and you notice people come on the first 10-15 minutes and they're a bit nervy and don't know what to say and they're stuttering, and then after about 25 minutes there'll be a topic that comes up that they're more familiar with, and then they run away, and then you've forgotten about the audience, and that's the main key, to forget the audience. It's just a general chat, like being on the phone.
That's it. That's it, and that's exactly the way myself and Steve do it. You know, we're facing a wall. We're sitting beside each other, facing a wall. But we just had the interest in setting up the radio show. We didn't have any. We had a mixing desk and a €10 karaoke microphone and a battered laptop and stuff. But we had the will. We had the interest, and we said, it doesn't matter if nobody listens. We want to do it anyway, so we'll have a bit of fun and we'll do it. Yeah. And we had a little bit of technical knowledge, obviously. We didn't know anything about radio, really. I mean, we're radio people because we're licensed radio people. But that's nothing. The licensed radio bit has nothing got to do with mixing desks and all that kind of stuff, really. No. You know, that's a completely different ball game. But the spooky thing, well, okay, the corporate world. I learned a lot about the corporate world and how it works, and gained a lot of confidence and understanding, and it broadened my mind. I've done extensive travelling, met loads of people, different cultures, and travel does broaden the mind and educates you. So I did learn an awful lot, and then what it felt like to be in a position where you're in charge of multiple offices around Europe, Middle East, Asia, and you have money. And you're in charge of hundreds of thousands of budget, money for budgeting for computer systems, and the business development, and so you have all that on your shoulders, you know. So it's a lot of stress, and I was feeling it as well anyway. So maybe it was a good thing. But the whole idea of when you look back and you think, maybe my life is being project managed. Maybe the universe is putting things in place to happen, because the story of myself and Steve. Oh, just quickly, while you mentioned there, at the start of the show, you said the two lads with no surnames. Right. Well, they are our names, right?
Yeah, I do know that.
They are, as you know, they are our names. But when we started OIM, our last names are just boring. So we just said, well, why don't we use our middle names? They sound better. And we said, yeah, okay, let's use our middle names. And we've had some flack from people going, why don't you reveal your own name? I said, because it's boring. The middle name sounds better. Some people think there's some kind of conspiracy going on when something happens. And when you actually hear the real reason why, you think, oh, that's quite boring, actually.
It's you know, we all have a tendency to overthink at times. But, yeah, it's good fun. So you got your mixing desk and you got up and running, and how long did it take to find your feet, so to speak, and then move on to what it is now?
Well, here's the uncanny thing. By the way, the Kate Bush song that you played, wow, there's no significance tie-in to that. She is just a phenomenal songwriter and performer. I mean, at the age of 16, she wrote the song A Man with a Child in His Arms. And at 15, 16, she wrote that. I mean, at 15, 16, I was on push bikes with my mates, and she was in the studio producing music like that. I mean, phenomenal, the stuff that she's been doing, and she's always been fantastic with music. So that's why I just respect, as a musician, I just respect her.
Kate Bush.
Yeah, I just have a lot of respect for her from a musician point of view. But here's the uncanny thing. When the universe... people talk about coincidence, and people say there's no such thing as a coincidence. Well, I agree, because how me and Steve got together, it was obviously had to happen. It just had to happen. Because when I relocated back to Ireland, I was living in Dublin at the time, and we hadn't found a place to live. And it could have been anywhere, really, it could have been anywhere. And I was on the internet, and I came across this website with CB radios on it, and I thought, oh, that's a really nice website, and I was bringing down fond memories of me on CB in the 80s, because I was big into CB in the 1980s. And so something I never do, really, very rarely, I never really do, is I sent an email to the guy who had the website, and I said, you got a nice website there, well done. It really brought me back memories of CB radios. And of course, I get an email back, oh yeah, CB radios, I'm big into that, I was big into the 80s. And then we get chatting on email. And that was Steve's website. So anyway, we find a location, we find a house, and to cut a long story short, and I send an email to Steve, and I just have to say, I'm hoping to get the a CB set up so I can be using it and transmitting. And he said, and I told him where I was, and I said, where are you based? He said, 10 kilometres down the road from you.
So now, about 7 miles to us Americans.
That's about 7 miles away. Now, I could have moved anywhere, and I ended up 7 miles away from where Steve lived.
Yeah, it's the way things happen. I upped sticks and left 4,300 miles, and people couldn't understand it. I said, I don't. Well, I do. I just felt the energies were better here for me. I felt a happier person when I was here. England, to me, before I understood frequencies, was uncomfortable and restrictive. I felt like I was in prison. I had all these conflicting opinions to most people, and so it became restrictive, where you're at least able to speak here without being abused, which is the standard thing you get. That happens back in England all too often. And so I up sticks and came 4,300 miles and decided to step outside the comfort zone which you'd mentioned. And I remember one person saying to me, "I don't know why you're going. You're leaving Everton behind, the soccer team." And I went, "There will be a reason."
Yeah.
There will be a reason, and I think this is what I'm doing now, and who I'm with now is the reason.
Yeah, and I agree. And this is it. And I think if I look back at the music side and the corporate side, I had to go through them to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
it was part of the learning. The universe said, "We want you to do this, but you're going to have to do this and this." Because you're going to need the skills and the knowledge from them to do that. So this is the way it's going to work. So 7 miles down the road from Steve, and we hook up, we meet up, and we find we have a lot in common, and then we get talking about things. And cut a long story short, we decide in 2010 that we need. Before we go down the OIM route, I just want to quickly say, before I left London, and this is very important, I spent them few years just learning about going down the rabbit hole and learning about the system. And when I come to the conclusion, and when I had the awakening that I didn't sleep for 2 days in a row or something like that, because it just had a massive effect on me. When it dawned on me what was going on, I just thought, we've had it, we're stuffed. And even after all them years of learning that, then all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, bang, a chap called Mark Impey, which Mark has been on the show, he's a friend of mine, he's a spiritual medium in London, and he does all the spiritual churches and centres and everything else. Within 2 weeks of me having that realization, Mark came on the scene, and very quickly I hooked up with Mark. I joined his spiritual circle because I then realized, hang on, so they've showed me the problem, now they're showing me the solution. And that's when I start learning about energy and frequencies and all that kind of stuff. And I had a kind of condensed training of developing my psychic abilities with Mark, because he didn't drive, so I was with him all the time, going around to all the churches and experiencing all these different things and speaking to so many different people and doing different things, which was phenomenal. We looked on the internet for a DVD or some information about spiritualism, and we couldn't find it. So myself and Mark actually created a DVD, which is still available, called A Guide to Spiritualism. And I did all the video work, the techie work, and Mark did all the talking and the content. And we went on location around London, Verulamium, which is a Roman village. And we talked about, the essence of spiritualism and what it's all about, because I come across people over here in Ireland and the spiritual jealousy and spiritual snobbery, and they just don't get it. They don't understand the concept of, for me, I know spiritualism for some people is a kind of it's a religion because you get tax write-offs, but for me it's just a way of life, right? Be good to take care of yourself and be good to other people, and don't
spiritual is a funny concept in a way, because it's about the one. Being spiritualism is about how you develop, but as you develop, you become the one, which is what the collective is. Initially, if you're getting into spiritualism thinking you have to be part of a group, spiritualism is about you.
Totally. And you have to wake up to that. I think the three processes, and we talked about this when we did the talk in Dublin, and it's part of our talk for next year in March when we do the Open Mind Conference. You're in the matrix, and then you become aware, and then you become self-aware. And that's the way we see it. That's kind of the process. Now, some people jump from the matrix and they become self-aware, and they don't know about being aware of what's going on. They just know that they're in the spiritual side and they're helping to heal people and all that, and they're not aware about what's going on with the New World Order and all that kind of stuff. And that's fine, but it'd be good if they actually knew a bit as to why they're doing what they're doing, because they're doing what they're doing, but you don't.
You've got to know the enemy to defeat it.
Exactly, and they don't. They're doing what they're doing because it's all love and light and it's all nice, and that's great. But they don't really understand why they're doing it, and this is the aware part. So you're matrix aware, and then you become self-aware.
Yeah.
So myself and Mark. Now the DVD was made in 2005. It's more like Paddy Spielberg than Steven Spielberg because there's no special effects in it. It's the content. It's the content that's more important. And we go through all the processes from, wanting to get involved in spiritualism to stuff we talk about for mediums who already are involved, and we talk about other stuff like Kirlian photography and orbs and all that kind of stuff. We got good feedback from people saying that really covers the basics of spiritualism and how to get involved in it. Now, in the UK, Thomas, that there's loads of spiritual churches all over the place. I come over from the UK thinking, great, okay, I'll join a spiritual circle when I come over here, and in Ireland, and there's none. There's no churches, no circles, or very few. So to cut a long story short, because I had all the good training from Mark and from the other mediums over in the UK and the churches, and they have a certain ethics which they apply to when they're doing the spiritual development, which was very good, which is on the ball. You don't do this, you don't do that, and so I set up my own spiritual circle over here in Ireland, and I ran that for a few years, which was great fun. And but I also did personal development and as well as spiritual development, because when you jump out of the comfort zone and you say, this is Ireland, Catholic Ireland, remember, and you're a spiritualist. I mean, in my local area, I've probably been burnt a few times at the stake.
Sacrosanct.
Yeah. Because how dare you, spiritualists? You have to go to church and see a priest and confess. So you have
money
to have,
and bend over.
Exactly. You've been there then. Okay. So when you step outside the matrix, it's a lonely world, especially when everybody around you is still in the matrix. So you have to find your own confidence. So what I did is in my circle is I explained to them about getting your own confidence and becoming who you are and being real to yourself and sod everybody else what they think. Now one of the ladies I was a facilitator. I'm not saying that I was anything special there's people in my circle who are brilliant and they wiped the floor with me. They just needed some kind of, it's like you get a talented footballer. Yeah, you know football, right? So you get a talented footballer. He just needs to join a club to get the sharp edges, sanded down. So they join the circle and they learn all about the ethics and all about all that side of it and the personal development. And one of the ladies who was in my circle, funny enough, who was so sheepish when she came up to me, when she first came into me and said, I'd be interested in joining if you will have me. She's actually now running the local spiritual centre in the local area, not too far from where I am.
That's cool.
And she gets up in front of the audience and talks to people and does readings and stuff like that. And I'm amazed, because when this lady came to me, she was as sheepish as anything. Now she's running the whole centre. So I'm not taking all credit for that. She's done a lot herself.
But this is again what we're trying to get with these shows, is get people to have their voice. We talk each week, and obviously our listeners find it interesting to listen to the following week. But people, I've said this before, and you mentioned it, I was going to put in early on about people thinking, that's impossible, little me.
Yeah.
And I've said, don't change it to I'm possible.
Yeah.
And so there's the example, a very timid woman suddenly becoming a beacon of light, and someone that people are hanging on their words, and that's how it changes. It's about believing in yourself, and spirituality teaches the belief in yourself.
Yeah, it's amazing.
To then become part of the all.
Yeah, definitely. I always say, and I even say to my son, always be yourself, because if you be yourself, you'll attract the right people. If you put on a different personality, you'll attract the wrong people. And what this lady did was, she got her hair done, she got her eyes done, and she just became confident and said, "Sod everybody, this is my belief, and I'm a spiritualist medium, and if they don't like it, tough." And fair play to her. And now she's running the spiritual centre, and she's great at what she does. So, me and you, I think we'll say this, Thomas. We are just Joe Soaps. We're nobody special.
No.
Well, I'm not. I don't. The last thing I want is people, saying, looking up to me in any way, shape, or form. I'm Joe Soap. I mean, in all honesty,
look up to the example set rather than the person behind it.
Exactly.
That's the key to it. We speak about being leaders. If you're going to be a leader and lead the way the cabal do and the government, where it's all controlling and goose-stepping and you must follow orders, then we're always going to fail. That's why the world's in a mess. If you promote leaders who don't want to be a leader but act as a leader, so forget the title. Be a leader by example, a teacher.
Yeah.
Not like the bloody generals follow my orders and go and get out the trenches and run into a hail of bullets. That's not a leader. That's a psychopath.
I mean, you'll always get followers. I don't think you'll ever change that.
No, but it's we have to end the saviour program. I've said this on. You've heard me saying it many times. I'm not the saviour. You are. Yeah,
totally.
Because I can't save the world on my own. I'm not that arrogant to think I can.
Totally.
It's about we save the world.
Yeah, we all have to do it. We all have to do our bit, because we're all part of the jigsaw. And if we all take a part of the jigsaw and we all do our bit, then you get the full picture.
And lighten the load.
Exactly. And I mean, as I say, I'm nobody special. I had my we had the block toilet, and I had to get the old plunger down and do, I mean, we go through the same things as everybody else,
Sometimes
trouble with
forgetting.
kids, trouble with cars, and you have to get back to reality. That's just the way it is. We just people that myself and Steve had a lot to say, and we felt we had a lot to say, and we just bit the bullet, and we said, look, if nobody listens to us, it doesn't matter. We'll just talk about it anyway. And
your show has gone very well, hasn't it? Without highlighting certain names, there's been quite a lot of the bigger names, the so-called bigger names, that's been through your show. Some of them you believed in, some you haven't, and part of the problem is people think if you bring people on your show that you're validating them. No, you're giving them an opportunity to hear that part of the story, whether it's 100% correct or 100% bullshit or a mixture of both. It's up to them to discern.
That's it. Well, I mean, me and Steve, we still 7.5 years on, we still say the same thing. We're just two guys with two microphones talking about what's going on in the world and asking people to come on. They might give us a bit of the truth. They might give us a bit of the jigsaw, or else they might not give us a bit of a jigsaw. They might expose themselves and they might be talking complete BS. But we get them on and we find out, what they're talking about, and we'll see. And we try and avoid giving our opinion because we don't want to influence anybody. We want our listeners to make up their own opinion on what resonates with them, because we are all on a path of knowledge, and myself and Steve always talk about this. And some people are further down the path than others. And it's, like the Pain Genie thing, we heard about that 2 years ago, but we put it on the shelf because it wasn't resonating with us at the time. But we put it on the shelf and said we leave it there. And then 2 years later, bang, it was the right time. And then we got involved and learned about the Pain Genie and met Richard and everything else. So if it doesn't resonate with you, don't just put it aside and say that's a load of BS. Put it on the shelf and come back to it when you've gone further down the road, because then it might resonate with you. So again, it's all about being open-minded and not just throwing things away because it's not resonating with you at that time. Yeah. So basically, myself and Steve got together. We had very Mickey Mouse equipment, and we just said we'll do it for a bit of crack. I mean, if people want to listen to the first show, we can always give them a link to the first show because it's a bit of a laugh. It's terrible. It really is terrible. Well, our shows, I mean, we got a bit better over the 7 years, but the first few shows,
We got a lot better.
Well, we got a bit better, We try and, because of my corporate background, I like being professional, and we try and be as professional as we can, and that's why we have the format the way it is. And I do sometimes hear other alternative media shows where people are doing interviews, and I'm kind of cringing, and and I'm thinking, look, it doesn't take much just to be a bit more organised.
Yeah.
Because we are trying to put the information across, and if it comes across like amateurish, then it just takes the bit of the interest away, the dynamics away from the show.
It's got to have a flow to it.
Yeah. So we tried different things over the years, and we feel now that we found the format that we want and that works. I mean, you get some people turn around and say, "No, why are you speaking like that? Idiots at the front. Why don't you just get the guest on?" Well, you get to the stage where, look, mate, if you don't like it, that's the format of the show. If you don't like it, tell you what, you set up your own radio show, mate, and you do it your way. Yeah. There you go. And then you can help us in the alt media, and even have another radio show out there. We can educate more people. So we stick to the format. We know people like the format, and we get, we get great comments from emails. It's brilliant. But again, we are nobody special. We like to thank the listeners, the support that we've had. Here's the thing. There's a couple of times, and I don't know about you, Thomas, but a couple of times in the 7.5 years, myself and Steve have reached a brick wall, and we've said, will we carry on doing what we're doing? And all of a sudden, this burst of energy comes in, and then we're on the road again, and then we're off again. And it's very important, people always say, and here's a little tip, I think. I'd like to think it's a little tip. People always say, I don't know what path, I don't know what to do. What's my path in life? What do I have to do? And when you're on the right path, you're on the right path because the energy be right behind you. Now, people say finding the right path is the hard bit. Yeah. But here's a kind of my tip. In the early 90s, I used to play computer games. And the guys who wrote the computer games wrote the games in a way that if you went down an alleyway that you weren't supposed to go down, the doors wouldn't open and you wouldn't be shot at. But if you go down the alleyway where you're supposed to go, the doors would open and you'd be shot at. That's the way the flow of the game is. Yeah. So when people turn around and go, oh, anything I do, it doesn't work out. Yeah, it doesn't work out because you're on the wrong path.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is find your path. Now, the tip is that whatever you're working at and whatever your path is, guaranteed it's going to be two things. Two. It could be more things, but there's definitely two things in the path. One, take care of yourself in a non-selfish way, and two, service to others. If you find your path that involves them two things, I'm pretty sure that you'll find your path.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the new way, the non-competing.
Yeah.
It's been the most damaging thing this planet, as everything is a competition. Better clothes, better houses, better shoes, and all this stuff. I'm on a pay grade above you, so that makes me better than you. Or I've got these qualifications from school, so you've got none, so you must be stupid. Really? No, everyone has their own ability. Everyone has a path to follow, and can achieve whatever they believe. If you don't believe that you can be anything or be anyone or do anything, then that's what you're going to get. And so ultimately, I know the help. You keep saying about, well, we're just two guys with a mic, but you also go out on the road and help the homeless, and have done actively. So there's that aspect to it. And then we have the hidden side of THI, where we've helped people with entity issues. We've helped people with psychological issues and trauma issues, and also cancelling the pharmaceutical meds, all in private. So it's getting those people to believe in themselves. You don't need pharmaceutical drugs.
Exactly.
But and they've got to believe it themselves.
That's it. And they just need to, as I say, if you're going to take care of yourself. It goes back to the oxygen on the plane. If there's a lack of oxygen on the plane, you put the mask on yourself before you put it on your kids, because you'll be no use to your kids if you try and put it on your kid first. And that's not being selfish. That's just doing it correctly. That's just doing it the right way. But the energy that you get I've always kind of been that kind of way. I don't mind helping people out. I've always kind of been like that anyway, growing up. Again, thanks to my dad. And the way he was, because he always helped people out. It was amazing, just the amount of people used to come around and say, can you fix this? Can you fix this? And my dad would say, yeah, no problem at all. And he'd fix it. So I grew up with that. So that's just the way I was. But I didn't understand the impact of the energy of doing that until I got involved kind of in the spiritual side. And then I realized, actually, there's something in this. And it's not, hey, I've done something, look at me. Again, like that goes back to the ego. It's a case of, doing something for the right reason. I mean, everything, to me, from a spiritual point of view, everything is intention. And the universe knows your intention. Yep. So if you think you're going to fool the universe by going, I'm doing it for the good of, that person, but ideally in your head, you're doing it for yourself. Yeah, you won't fool your soul. You won't fool the universe. They know. So it's all about intention. And if you do it with the right intention, then the energy will be so much different. And I think as well that people and this energy has, this is only this is kind of a subjective rather than an objective point of view, because I've no research on it. But I do feel that this energy has healing qualities. Because if you are on the right path and you're swimming downstream, it's a lot less, it's so much easier than trying to swim upstream.
Yeah. But to this is why we talk about doing the shadow sides and doing your inner work. I said something to you yesterday, which I'll probably repeat again on Thursday. But basically, if you fill a gallon of water, a gallon of water in, and that's the vessel, and then weigh it, and then tip half out and put mud in. It's the same volume, but it's a lot heavier. And this is where the energies comes in. And the mud is the trauma, the negativity, the guilt, and the shame that you're carrying around with you. You're just dragging a heavy bucket right around wherever you go. Now, when you talk about frequencies, illness is a frequency. It comes from the lower astral. So if you are heavily laden with those negative frequencies, be it shame, guilt, trauma,
how are you going to absorb the better energies that are coming in now, that have been since 2002? You're not. You're only going to fill your bucket half full. That's if you've got half clean and half not. Now, you can't just tip the bucket out and throw all the mud away, because you've then thrown all the water away. And the vessel, our vessel, is 70 to 80% water, which also has a healing frequency. And so, if it's vibrating at the right frequency and it's not carrying that mud with it, then suddenly everything feels lighter. So as you filter, but you have to filter the mud out. You can't just tip it out. You have to run it through a filter. It's like the things they put on the ends of taps, where it filters all the different rogue parts out of it. It's the same thing that we're trying to do with the listeners on both shows, and when you go on down a spiritual path, it's filtering out that mud out of the water to make it clear, and suddenly you feel lighter, and suddenly better things happen. And yes, there'll always be attacks because of the nature of what's going on this planet, with all the directed energy weapons and the Wi-Fi and all that stuff. But because you've cleaned the mud out, you are able to deflect those energies a lot easier because you're lighter.
Yeah. And again, it also goes to finding your own confidence. When you step outside the matrix, yes, it's a lonely road because there's a lot of people in it. But you just resonate at your own personality. Just be yourself. Again, going back to psychology, we've said this on the show multiple times. You know, when people are insecure or they have low self-esteem, they put on what they call masking, and you put on a personality that they think people will like. And that's why when couples get together and they meet for the first time, after about 6 months, you get one of them saying, "You're not the same person that I met," because they put on a fake personality.
The mask of illusion.
The mask of illusion.
Yeah.
Exactly. So all I say to people is you have to find your own confidence and accept the fact, you know, that some people aren't going to like you. So the numbers are like this, and you can apply these figures to everything. Apply it to business, apply it to your personal life. 33% of people will like you. 33% of people won't like you. And 33% of people will be sitting on the fence. All right? Yeah. The people who don't like you will never like you. And the people sitting on the fence, let them make up their own mind. The 33% that like you, they're the people you focus on. Work on your self-esteem and your confidence and work with them. You cannot please everybody. It's an impossibility. So don't even try. Just be yourself and find your own confidence.
Yeah, that's all. You know, and one of the biggest programs is that people have to overcome is what other people think of them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and when you find your own confidence, you won't give it to us.
No, because all they're doing, you treat those people as a personal test, not a confrontation, or I must punch the lights out because they don't like me. No, you treat it as a test. How did you react to it? Well, if you're going to keep reacting in a negative, angry and violent way, then you haven't really learned, have you? So it will repeat again.
Well, here's the thing we talk about ego, and we've talked about this as well, Thomas. And I've come across it on radio shows, alt media radio shows, and again, it's the ego. Myself and you have talked about the teenage mind and the adult mind, and we have to move the teenage mind being ego and ignorance, and the adult mind being humility and wisdom. And all our journey, another journey that we're all on, is to move from the teenage mind to the adult mind. Mm-hmm. And you can sometimes in the alt media, like we've had one or two guests on where they might say something not insulting but kind of derogatory or condescending, right? Yeah. Now, if we had the ego, we would actually go and attack him, because the ego would say, "We're better than you. We're going to have you. We're going to give out. I'm going to get a better of you." That's the ego. Where we avoid that, because, you know, at the end of the day, we're not going to make a show on the radio. We're not that kind of radio station. We're not confrontational. We don't do that. That's their opinion. their opinion's wrong, but it's their opinion, at the end of the day. And we don't do confrontational radio, but you'll get some radio DJs that are into that, and maybe they just have a chip on the shoulder and they want to prove a point.
It's all about me. It always bothers me. I don't listen to too much because it kind of muddies the path, so to speak. But I do listen to occasional ones, and it horrifies me when a show host brings somebody on and burbles about how great they are the whole way through it. And I've seen a couple of interviews with Shane, and Shane just sat there for 2 and 3 hours while the show host just basically either rips them apart or tells them how great they are. And I'm thinking, why bother? It's bad manners as well.
Yeah, well, you have to ask questions, but you can be diplomatic in the questions. If we were to attack every host that came on, every guest that came on our show, we wouldn't have a lot of guests. And that's what you have to be careful of as well, because again, it goes to the fact that you bring them on to either they'll have some great information, or they might just expose themselves on air and slip up or whatever. So, there's a double-edged sword there. So you just have to kind of be diplomatic, and you have to play the game. And you don't go down the confrontational route. Which is, the best way to do it. But
it's a lot easier for me doing THI. It wasn't as easy doing Cosmic Voice when we had some guests on there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking because you remember those shows when we had a guest on. It was me that spoke to the guest, and there was times when I'm doing it through gritted teeth. And I'm thinking, I would love to just say what I really want to say, but it wasn't my show.
Yeah.
But if I can handle people talking bullshit.
Yeah.
What I can't handle if it's got an agenda behind it.
Yeah.
I outed one of the bigger ones 2 years ago when it wasn't as easy to out. Not because I didn't agree with the ET narrative, because there's a load of nonsense about ET narrative and a load of good stuff as well. What it was, well, I felt I needed to step in because I knew there was a hidden agenda behind it, and it was going to be steered in a way that was not going to be beneficial to the ET type audience. So then I stepped in. I don't like outing people. I've had to do it a number of times on the show, but it's more to do with the hidden elements, the hidden agendas, where I have no option. I feel I have no option but to warn the listeners this he or she is guiding you onto a wrong path. And this is where we started off talking about the right path and what's the wrong path. Well, these people are standing in the side streets dragging people off the right path.
And that's part of it, going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
To send you down somewhere where you'll spend time. I had this talk, I mentioned this to you yesterday, somebody in the alternative media contacted me, and he was saying about, Las Vegas was the example he used, and he was, spending hour after hour looking at, how many shooters died, yada, yada. And I think people have to be aware of this. Look, Las Vegas, that's a false flag, right? I think within hours people were shown, mistakes. We're not saying people didn't get hurt. But I said to this person, take care of what you can change and don't worry about the things you can change. Now, he was spending a couple of hours from Las Vegas, on the Las Vegas shooting. And I was saying, look, you're taking your time looking into this when you could be spending time with your family. I said to him, do you agree that there's a group of elites in the world who's psychopathic enough to do things like this, to cause fear and all that? And he goes, yes. And I said, well, that's fine. That means that you don't need to spend 5 hours looking at Las Vegas to prove anything, because you already know the answer, that there's people out there who will do that. So I said, go and spend time with your family and just focus on the things you can change. Because the things you can change are going to be more important, because you can't change anything in Vegas. So why spend the time on it when you already know the answer? And I think everybody needs to be aware of that. You know, if you live in one country and something goes off in another country, be aware of it. No problem, be aware of it. But don't spend hours trying to study it when you already know the answer.
Yeah, it's a bit like ET disclosure. You got the people asking for ET disclosure when they've already had it. You know, many people have had their own experiences, and they're still asking for somebody else to disclose them what they already know. That's ass backward thinking.
And plus the fact that, you know, all the tons and tons of UFO sightings out there, you only have to prove one. You don't have to prove, you know, 95% of them, whatever. You only have to prove one. And I think people are trying to prove everything. Look at this, look at this, look at this. You only have to prove one. One UFO sighting that's quite good with ETs in it is enough to convince anybody. But the trouble is that, again, we get people suffering from cognitive dissonance because if they challenge their belief system, the world will change. So they prefer to have cognitive dissonance and just not acknowledge it because they don't want the world to change because they're in the comfort zone. Yeah. And believing that our ETs would make a massive change to their life, or in some way maybe they perceive it that way. So they don't want to learn about it. And that's the uncomfortable fact that when you do step out your comfort zone and start challenging what you believe, there are going to be things you're going to come across that are not going to be nice. No, and you just have to accept the truth isn't. I mean, the truth, as John Aaron says, is buried in a barrel full of lies, and it's very hard to find it. And that's what they do. They sugarcoat things, but they put the truth in there, but they sugarcoat all the lies around it, and you have to try and find that needle in the haystack. And sometimes it's not nice when you come across the truth. It does get easier as time goes on. Because you build up a pattern, you build up part of the jigsaw, and you get patterns repeating themselves, as you say, the programs and the timelines repeat themselves, so you kind of get into swing of things. Now, you're lucky that, you know, you have great intel that you get. We don't have intel from, we are told certain things that we can't talk about because there could be libel in it because we've no evidence. But we do. I think it's important that even though we're alt media and we're only two guys, we do feel that we're responsible for what we say, and we try and be as truthful as we can. And if we don't have the evidence, we'll speculate and just say, look, this is what we think. We're not sure, but here you go, and you know, go off and do your own research. But if we state something categorically, we do try and find the evidence to back it up, because I think it's very important. You know yourself, Thomas, there's certain people in the alternative media that will turn around and they'll talk about certain biospheres coming into, you know, our universe. But prove it. Prove it. You know, I mean, that's brilliant, but prove it. You know, we can't take your word for it. You show me a biosphere that's there, and then I'll believe you. But I'm not going to believe you just because you tell me. That's like circular logic. That's the saying, like, the Bible is true because the Bible says it is. Yeah. No, prove it. You know, so it's important that we distinguish between what's fact and what is subjective.
It's a difficult. It's not a broad sweep thing in certain aspects, because, you know, there's certain things that literally can't be proven one way or the other.
Experiences.
You know, I've had experiences, and some people have asked me to put them out on the shows, but they're my experiences. They're not somebody else's. You know, and whether they're real or they're not, again, is subjective to that person themselves. You know, it may trigger. Sometimes I'll add certain things in that will trigger some people into pulling out certain things out of them, like the Farley show. You know, that triggered a lot of people. You know, the pain and trauma and the heinous nature that they go about training Illuminati people. But you've got to space it out. You know, and that's kind of what we've done with our show. But the idea of proof, it depends on the field. You know, a lot of the stuff that I've said
has been proven correct. There's still elements, where I know that Hillary Clinton is dead. And a lot of people would turn around and say, that's complete and utter bullshit. And that's fair enough, because they're seeing an entity that looks like her. And because the news tells you that that's Hillary Clinton, that everyone has to believe it. But it's not, is it? CNN's been caught out today doing double screens, live footage from the same car park. They've been caught out again today. And yet people...
It's amazing, isn't it? Now, we know they have the synthetic robots, the androids, as we fondly call them. They've been doing this since the 50s, probably even earlier. Yeah. And they can produce them very quickly. So, who's to say that Hillary isn't, again, you have to open your mind. And I hate to put the plug in there and that's why we call the Open Your Mind Radio. To open your mind, and, you should, I made a comment the other day, and I was typing something, and I made it. We were talking about electronic stuff, Arduino and stuff like that, and I made a comment on the email, and then I looked back at it, and I thought, actually, that's not too bad of a comment. And the comment was, never let the limitation of your skills affect your imagination. Right? Just because you can't do it from a skill level doesn't mean you can't imagine what you want to do.
No.
So, when it comes to the alternative media, just because you don't see it in black and white, the technology that they have, you're not being shown it, doesn't mean you can't say, well, what if they had the technology? What if they have it and I haven't seen it? I mean, Ben Rich, who died in 1995, I read the book Skunk Works. He said that we have the ability to bring E.T. home. And if you read that book, it's very fascinating how they worked together in the 30s and 40s and 50s with the Blackbird and the U-2 airplane. I mean, they're phenomenal men. These, So who's to say? Yeah. So who's to say? And of course, with the whole UFO thing, I mean, they could have advanced tech, and they'd say, "Oh yeah, listen, let the people pretend it's if they say it's a UFO, then that we get off the hook. Then we can design all the advanced tech that we want." And every time people say, "Oh, what's that? A new plane?" No, that's a UFO. It just gives them the cover they need for that advanced tech.
Yeah, that's part of the Breakaway Civilization group and the SS small p. They're not good people. I know there's people who follow the person that promotes that. To me, bullshittery. But the SSP are the German breakaway group, the Nazis. Yeah. They're the ones that were in Antarctica. And the idea that they can bring E.T. home, what I will say is they never left.
Yeah, that's true. I was talking to a few lads there last week, and we were talking about the World War II and Hitler going to Argentina, and he wasn't in the bunker. And they were going, they said they found him in the bunker. And I said, well, do you know what happened? I said, they came across 2 dead people in the bunker and burnt. And they assumed that was Hitler because they never had any DNA technology. So they made an assumption that was Hitler and his wife. And that's it. And that's what it's based on, an assumption. So the 2 guys who did a 5 years study in a book called The Grey Wolf have all the FBI documentation evidence that Hitler did. I mean, the Germans knew they were losing the war in 1943, and so they made preparations to leave to South America and Antarctica, New Swaziland. So we won't go down that road because it's another subject. But and I said to the guys, have you ever heard of Project Paperclip? And they said no. I said, well, NASA is Nazis. I said von Braun went to America with all the 1,000 Nazis, whatever. And it was kind of they were just kind of look on them, they just didn't know about it, and I'm just, I just thought, well, surely you don't assume Hitler just died in the bunker. I mean, you seriously believe that Hitler and his wife died in the bunker? And then he said, oh, apparently he died. And I said, have you never heard of anti-aging technology? Oh, no, I haven't heard about it. So some It's some people just, as we say when we do our talk, there are some people like your Auntie Joe and your Uncle Jimmy who should never be woken up because they're a danger to themselves. So you never talk to them about subjects like this because they're just happy in their cocoon and what they do, and they're better off not knowing because they probably hurt themselves. So there are people that you shouldn't wake up because you know that you shouldn't wake them up.
Well, no, the reality is they're synthetic and they can't. It's part of the program to get you to realise that they're not real.
Yeah, so we have I think
so
we've
you
come
have
along.
to then step into your own reality.
Well, I think we've come a long way in the years, both of us, the Truth, Honour and Integrity show and OIM. And what the future holds, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
We'll get into that. We're going to have another quick music break. We kind of ran over the hour there. We're going to play Chris de Burgh.
Okay.
And we'll be back shortly with more from Alan James. Where are we? Here we are. Hi all and welcome back to An Evening with Thomas. With our guest today is Alan James, and that was Chris de Burgh, native of Ireland and the Spanish train. Suddenly the words of that don't appear the same as it was maybe 20, 30 years ago. Let the Lord win. I'm thinking, oh dear me.
Well, there's a reason. There's a reason why I picked that. I got given that album by a brother-in-law of mine in the 70s. A fantastic album, and the words are so poignant. Where the Lord thinks that he's going to play poker with the devil, and he thinks that the devil's going to be honest. And that's who we're dealing with. The judicial system over here in Ireland is rampant as a cesspit, and they just keep on moving the goalposts all the time, and it's like trying to play, chess with an expert chess player, and you're just learning. It's very hard to ever win.
It's like the parents use this analogy. The people are in a maze, and Shane brought this up. The people are in a maze, and when they get close, we move the walls.
Yeah.
And this is the stacked system we're playing against. And why you have to stand in your own sovereignty and gain your own belief and gain your own self-confidence and be prepared to take the world on, because the ones that believe in it are the ones that do it.
Yeah, and it's something that we all have to get there eventually. Everybody has to get there. The people that need to get there. So the quicker you get there, the better, I suppose. But try and meet up with like-minded people. On that album, the Spanish Train album, and there's also a song called "A Spaceman Came Traveling." And the rumor is, and I don't know how true it is, but it's a rumor that we heard that he got kicked out of the Catholic religion because he said Jesus was a spaceman. Hence the song "A Spaceman Came Traveling." If you listen to the song, it's all about in there, Just on another note, we had Kate Bush on earlier, and one thing I forgot to say is that Kate Bush did a song called "Cloud Busting," and it was based on a book she read by a guy called Peter Reich. Now, Peter Reich's father was Wilhelm Reich, the guy who did all the chembusters. Who died in jail, I believe. The government wanted to shut him down using the argon energy. Again, why she chose to write a song about it, she must have, the videos, you can go to the video and see Donald Sunderland there. She was fascinated by the book and Peter, and she did it so much so she did a video. So it's and she has another couple of songs in her repertoire that actually talk about revealing stuff. So maybe There's music people. I mean, you said on your show there, Thomas, about people saying, you know, rock music is satanic music, and you mentioned a few musicians and a few bands, and you talked about the lyrics, and the lyrics were just exposing what was going on. Hotel California, for example.
Yeah. Oh yeah, heaven and hell. World is full of kings and queens who blind your eyes and steal your dreams. You know, they'll tell you black is really white. And this is, again, part of the mind effort. You know, we're in a war at the moment, but it's not, you know, certain regions has bombs and planes firing. But particularly in Europe, where we have no physical war, but we have a mental war. And this is what people have to realise, is there's a war going on for your mind. Because they want to tip you off the path so that everyone follows their lead and their orders. And if we don't step up, which we have, if we hadn't stepped up, we would already be in the cybernetic world. You know, and we would already have 90% less. You know, that's, you mentioned yesterday, how are we having an impact? And I do understand that at times, because we all get those days, you know, why am I doing this? You know, to me, this job's 24/7. Yes, I go to work during the day, but it's on my mind all day. And all night as well, because of the other stuff gets involved. But you can't, you said earlier, you can't just let it go. You can't unlearn what you already know. It's exactly, you know, it's a continuous path, and we have to. Even, you know, some people get upset if you say it may take 40 years. Well, I won't be around then. Well, that's kind of selfish, because that means you don't bother doing it because you won't see it. No, it's about progression. And we have to lay the foundations for a better world for the children of the future. Otherwise, we don't have any. And this is the problem in society now. The children have no future. They only have a cybernetic virtual reality world.
Exactly. And we have kids and we have grandkids, so we're doing it for them. Yeah. So they have a world. Even if we don't see the fruits of our labour, they will hopefully see the fruits of our labour, and the grandkids, and they'll have a better life than have it, you know, being controlled. The one thing I'll say, I'm just sidetracking a little bit, is going back to the spiritual side, is that for people, just be aware that, you know, the people in spiritualism, there's some people that you just kind of keep away from. They have the wrong energy. They're materialistic, and they're doing it for the wrong reasons. As I say, you get spiritual jealousy and spiritual snobbery, which I found out about over here in Ireland. You know, like you have an angel shop in a rough area of town, and the other angel shop is in a posh area of town. So there's your spiritual snobbery. Yeah. So the people, they take the title that I'm a spiritualist or I'm a spiritual person, and they haven't a clue what it means. No. You know, so you have to walk the walk and talk the talk, and that's important, along with intent. So I kind of backed away from the spiritual side over here, from meeting people, because I didn't like the people I was meeting. No. Because they just got they just didn't get it. They just didn't get it. Now, you know, for whatever reasons, the energies of the universe use them for whatever reason. Maybe maybe the universe sees it that any kind of help they have is a help to wake people up. You know, I don't know. I just think, you have to find your own power. You have to find your own confidence and be yourself. You'll attract the right people, the like-minded people into your circle. I try and I dwindle down the people who I associate with, because I just don't need to have their energy pulling on me. You have to be careful of energy vampires. But the best gauge, and I'll say this to people on a psychological level as well as an energetic level, you have to look at the six closest people around you. So look at who the 6 people are around you and ask yourself, do they add positivity to your life? Because positivity breeds positivity. So do they add positivity to your life, or are they negative people? Do they pull on your energy? And if they pull on your energy, then you have to remove them from the circle or keep away from them. And add people who actually help, because all that helps you and helps your energy. So, all they have to do is sit down, think about who the 6 closest people in their life, and then ask yourself, do they help your life? Do they help you in a positive way? And that's kind of a bit of a game changer as well, because when you actually sit down and look at that, you think, wow, okay, I didn't actually think about it before until I think about it now, and maybe that family member is pulling on my energy, because some people pull on your energy, you don't even realize they're doing it. And, you sit down with them for 20 minutes and you feel drained, and you think, God, wow, I have to get away from this person. And sometimes it's either subconsciously, sometimes they don't realize it. I have relatives like that. As soon as you sit down with them, it's all about them. Everything's about them, and that's it. And you think, wow, okay, I call it, it's for energy to work right. I call it, and conversations to work right, I call it conversational ping pong. Right? You go, I go, you go, I go. Yeah. And karma, you go, I go, you go. No, it's not about keeping score. It's nothing about, oh, you did it for me, I did it. It's not about keeping score. But the energy flow has to be flowing.
It has to complement.
And if you have people that are not flowing with your energy and they're takers, because again, myself and Steve talk about takers and givers. It's all about energy. And they're takers. You have to cut them off because they're pulling on your energy. It has to be ping pong. It has to go from one to the other, and it has to flow.
Yeah, this is something I approached kind of lightly 2 years ago, in the May of 2015, and I did it kind of veiled at first because I knew people would react at the time. But I spoke about doing your shadow side and dealing with the inner work. Don't look at family to help you. It's about you. And this is where it gets muddy because of family connections and friends and partner connections. And this is why it's so difficult for all of us that listen to this show, is we're rarely able to have a free flowing conversation like this show is, because the background noise shuts it down. The people who don't want to entertain what you're saying, they're not interested in what you're saying, and they'll make fun of you, they'll roll their eyes, they'll walk out, they'll change the subject, and that's the sense of frustration we've all experienced. And sometimes in life you have to let them people go. And that again comes back into what you mentioned previous about change. We're not comfortable with change, but what I've seen and witnessed, including myself, long-term relationships suddenly ending. Volumes of them in the alternative media. Why? Because suddenly the partner is not on their path anymore.
Exactly.
And you can continue to live the lie, or you can step out of your comfort zone and go. They play the role of putting me near the path, but they're not walking down the same path as me. Yeah, it's very common. And, I was married for 32 years, but I couldn't have done what I'm doing now with her in tow. And if she was sitting there now, she'd say the same. Because she was a drain, and all the friends left. Because the path, in essence, you're talking about paths being laid out. And whether it's the universe or divine intervention or whatever. But my whole life got cleared out in 2013. And I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now, carrying all those people. So they had to go. And it's uncomfortable. But then, as time moves on, as we understand it, then you realise, now I know why that person left. It wasn't nice at the time, but now I know why.
Mm.
And there's always a reason. And particularly in this time, if partners leave and you think it's the end of the world, no, actually it's been for your benefit.
Mm. Yeah.
But
and
it just takes that period of time to see.
I think what's important is that you could be in a relationship with somebody who's not on the same path, but they don't hassle you with what you do, which is fine. It's only when they stop you doing what you want to do, what you're driven to do, that's when it starts being an issue, and that's when the trouble starts.
Yeah,
because I'm sure there's people out in the alternative media who will have a partner either way that will say, "Oh, that's nice there," and then go on and do what to do, and they just let them go off. It's a hobby, and and the partner's doing it, and that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's when they stop you doing it, that's when it becomes the issue, because the drive, when you wake up and the drive of trying to educate people and they're stopping you do it, you do feel like saying, okay, now you're interfering with what I'm doing. Now it's become an issue. And that's when you have to deal with it. So they either wake up together or they don't. And then when it becomes an issue, then that's when things have to change. Again, there's some people, like I have neighbours now that I probably wouldn't talk anything about this, because I can't really be bothered taking the energy to try and educate them. But if I do have somebody who's kind of rolling their eyes, I will approach them, but I'll approach them from a psychological point of view. And I'll kind of, because at the end of the day, I find that quite insulting. That I've been doing this since 2001. This is not ego or arrogance, but I've spent a lot of time researching. When somebody comes up to you who's done no research, they've watched something on TV and they're calling you a conspiracy theorist after you've all 16 years, that's open game for me. And then I just point out, I go, okay, so you think it's, no, I'm not rude, I don't insult them. But if they say, oh yeah, that's a lot of BS, again, I apply the simple psychology. Oh, it's BS. Right, okay. Listen, can you give me all the stuff, the research that you've done? Because you've obviously done a lot of research on this to get to that point where you think it's BS. Can you give me that? Because I've loads of evidence here to go against what you're saying. So can you give me your research? And they go, yeah, okay, well, I don't have
TV told me.
Yeah, the TV told me I don't have any research.
It's like the ultimate conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
That jet engine fuel melted 80 floors and collapsed in on itself in 9 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the ultimate in conspiracy theory. And yeah, people believed it.
It's classic. Well, then again, so what I would say to him, I said, right, so you're telling me that I've loads of research here and factual information saying that, what happened has happened, and you have done no research, but yeah, you're saying I'm the conspiracy theorist and you've done no research. Wow, that's quite ignorant, isn't it? To think that, you're saying I'm BS and you've no research, but you think I'm wrong. Sometimes when you point it out to people, and sometimes they get it, and other times they go, oh, and they fluff it off and then they walk away. Again, you're pointing out their arrogance and their ignorance of what their statement is. And I find that disrespectful. They're disrespecting my research and the years I've spent doing this. So why should I be... Yeah, it's like the LA gang said, don't diss me, right? Well, if at the end of the day, it's don't disrespect me. And I will say to the audience listening, if they're still listening, because we've been talking a long time.
No, they're still listening, all of them.
We don't. Myself and Steve don't go out to upset anybody. We don't upset anybody. We just don't do it, right? Mm-hmm. So if somebody is having a go at us, our listeners hear somebody having a go at us at OIM, ask yourselves, what their problem is. Ask yourselves, what have they done to us for us to upset them, or have a go with them? Because we don't do it. We don't go out and we don't have a go at people. So, and as you say, we are nice people, Thomas. But if we're being an ass to somebody, then ask yourself what that person did for us to be like that way.
Yeah, well, I see that. I have to say I do diss people on the show, but people who require it, the clowns as I call them. It's we're in difficult times, and I've tried to prepare people, but I don't think people could imagine how quickly it would grow, even though people saying it's taken ages, it should have been fixed by now. And I'm thinking, well, what have you actually done? What's your role? Is it just listening to a show and thinking that's it? No, it's not. Everyone has a capability of doing something. What is your intention? As you mentioned earlier, and there's been so many changes. Most conspiracy theories, as they called it, which is a CIA meme, by the way, go figure, have all been out in the mainstream media. The pedophilia, it's out now. The false flags, so that they created a meme called fake news.
Yeah.
Look at the Vegas incident. It was because of the alternative media producing videos where you could hear two separate guns. They then come up with another theory of bump stocks. And then they found another video that had both guns firing at the same time. So then they created another false flag event to remove the Vegas. That's the impact we're having. That they have to do cover stories. It's like when I put out, last year, I put out that Hillary Clinton was at the point of death. Last June. The media within a week was running pieces that Hillary was not well, but she's getting better. No, she was dying then. And that's the impact that all of us in the alternative media is having. They're having to answer to what we're putting out. That wasn't the case 4 years ago. It wasn't the case 2 years ago. And so never underestimate the impact, not only what we're having, but the listeners are having, because it's changing rapidly. We're just wanting the end goal quicker. But the end goal came on January the 1st, 2013, when they lost. We just have to claim the victory. That's one of Shane's quotes. We have to claim the victory. And we only claim the victory when we step in to their shoes and operate in a different way. We can't carry on acting the same way and expect change. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. Well, isn't it the Einstein quote? Doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. Yeah.
So the people that don't like politicians, well, perhaps the alternative media funds their own politicians and puts them in positions. Then we can shake them up.
Yeah, totally. And that's
or we get lawyers.
Yeah,
there's plenty of lawyers in the alternative media where we put them in positions and route out the criminals.
Yeah, we have to. It is an uphill struggle, but it is happening. It is happening, and maybe more in the States and maybe more in the UK. I don't see it much happening in Ireland, because everything's so controlled. I mean, we only have a population of 4.5 million, so it's very cliquey.
Yeah.
And we talk about the golden circle, and it's just what's frustrating is when you see the amount of homeless people and the amount of people committing suicide, and you want to stop that. That's really the frustration, more so than I want the end game, is how can we stop the suicides? How can we stop the evictions? How can we help the homeless? And at least let's help them out and get things up and running.
By stopping
while we're trying to
them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just don't know how the Irish politicians can be ignoring the evictions and the homelessness that's going on, and they're just completely ignoring them. If you look at all the pages and Facebook and all that, they just completely ignore it. I mean, one local politician over here in my area, they spent €300,000 on refurbishing a theatre. And there's people being evicted, and there's homeless crisis and kids. When I went down to the homeless team, the You're Not Alone, the charity we support, we went down, I did an interview, and I was there for the night. And they were feeding the homeless, and there was kids coming up to the table getting fed. You know, I mean, that's scandalous in 2017 to have kids coming up to tables looking for food and clothes. It's just unbelievable.
Because that's the way they wish to see it. It doesn't mean to say that we have to agree to it. And we have to quit ignoring it just because it happens in another country like Africa. Well, we're not African, so we'll just ignore it.
Yeah.
You know, eventually it's going to hit your bubble.
Yeah. But the whole thing about charity begins at home. I can't do anything about Africa, but I can do something in where I am.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea. Do what you can where you are. And, you know, be aware of the other things, but do what you can where you are.
Yeah, and get the movement to grow in your own community. So you become communal, which then has a knock-on effect if other people see how one small community can change things by organic food or whatever, or educating the kids privately between them. Homeschooling, and suddenly those children are doing rather well, and they're not vaccinated and programmed into oblivion. Then eventually the herd mentality kicks in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then it becomes, oh, that's not as nutty as I thought it was. It's working. Funny that, isn't it? Yes, it's working because it was the right way to go.
But I think also people have to be aware that and we are kind of, I know me and you and we do it, and there's people out there that do it as well, and it's like 24/7. It's like a full-time job.
Yeah.
But we have to be grounded, and we have to walk away and get on with the mundane things that need to be done, like the washing and the ironing and the cooking and all that. We can't be shooting on all cylinders all the time, because we only end up burning ourselves out. So we have to take that bit of time away as well, because we're no good to anybody, you know, if we're burnt out.
You sound like Chloe.
Well, actually, me and Chloe were talking before we did the show. No, we weren't. No, look, you have to preserve your own health. You're no good to anybody if you're doing it 24/7. So I try and make a conscious effort that I get away from what needs to be done, and I do the mundane stuff, and I focus on other little projects just to keep my mind, give my mind a rest. And just, now chances are the projects might be in relation to what needs to be done, but it's a completely different thing, because you have to have me time, and you have to give your family and your if you have kids time as well. And that's why I said it to this chap. I said, don't be worrying about the Vegas stuff. I said, you know the answer. Go and spend time with your family.
Yeah. My downtime is football, but that's even more disastrous.
I know, you just end up chucking things at the telly if they lose,
It's character building being an Evertonian, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I bet
more
it
disappointments than not, We won today, so...
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, is that any silver in the old cabinet these days?
No, that's a long time past.
Is it? I wouldn't know. I'm not. You know me. I'm not a footballer or a sports fan. But
so, we're getting near the end.
Yeah.
What do you see the future holding for us and OYM and the world?
Well, for OAM, we'll kind of carry on and doing what we're doing. What we want to do is, again, the energy has come behind us, and we have great supporters for OAM, and we've been given the opportunity to, we've been gifted a professional video camera, because we do have a celebrity who's asked us to do an interview with them, and we have the green screen. So although donations are very few, the very few donations we get are great from the people who do it. Yeah. Because we do exist on the donations, and we refuse to go down the subscription route where you have to pay for a subscription. We're not going to do that. This information we talk about is out there and it's free, and it's just that, the couple of quid, the odd fiver and tenner, it does help to pay the bills and do the projects that we do. But we want to kind of expand and start doing OAM TV. We do get moaned at by people saying, how come when we Google OAM we can't find your photograph and who you look like and all that? And we always say, well, look, the content we talk about is not going to change. It's not going to make any difference what we look like. And it's not about us, it's about the guest and about the information.
Well, I've got the perfect face for radio, so that's
listen,
my excuse.
I don't even have a voice for radio. Steve has the voice for radio. I don't have a voice for radio. I'm just winging it all the time, every Sunday that we do this. But no, we just we just don't feel we don't have egos. I mean, there are alternative media people out there, as you know, and every time there's a camera, they're jumping in front of the camera because they want a photo taken. I don't do ego. I'm not interested in it. I've done the music business. I've done all that. I've done the corporate stuff. I'm not interested. I actually like my privacy as well.
Yeah, well, you can't be spiritual based and have an unbalanced ego.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not into. I don't. I've done that.
So
I've done. Yeah, I've done the music business thing and I've done all that stuff. So it's more got to do with the content, and we will, like we did the talk in the Basics conference with Miles Johnston, and we were on stage in front of 100 plus people there, and we're doing the show next week, next March. We're doing the two biggest alternative media events in Ireland. We've been asked to talk about them, which is a nice honour, and it's respect from our peers that we've been asked to do it. But we go in giving problems and solutions, not just problems. We talk about solutions as well.
Maybe the March one, you might see a familiar face in the audience.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Okay.
Maybe.
Well, okay.
We'll see.
Well, okay.
I know I was promised I would come over this summer, but this year, I can't believe it's November.
But listen, we have a road trip to do. You know that.
Yes, I've got to complete that journey.
Yeah, we have a road trip to book in, and we've to do that road trip, right?
Yeah, hopefully it's a bit warmer in March than it is in November, December.
You haven't been in Ireland for a long time, have you? Or have you ever been in Ireland? Yeah,
I was there a long time ago.
Yeah, when it's summer, when the rain is warmer,
Yeah, this life I've visited. I've been to Belfast twice. I went to see the Irish Cup final. There's a friend of mine, a social worker, one of the few normal ones. Was from Belfast, and he invited me over to the cup final. So I went to Belfast twice, and then went to Dublin for one day to see Everton. So that's my experience in this lifetime of Ireland.
Okay. Well, we'll be able to sort something out, and we'll organise the road trip. Let us know in advance, and we'll sort things out. So we have the talk next year. So we're in front of the audience, and we're on video, and we're going to be on video on both of them. And people will hear what we talk about and show, but we don't actively go out to put our face out there or put ourselves out there, because if people want to hear us, just tune into the radio show. What we look like is no It doesn't make any difference to the content. It doesn't add anything. And I know people say, "Oh well, look, if you put your face out there, you'll be out on YouTube and get more clicks on." Yeah, I'm not interested. We're not interested. You know?
Yeah, that's all about image again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you have a certain look that you are a certain person. No.
Yeah.
That's your programming. Step outside your programming. You know, people, some of the THI members have met me and they go, "Oh, you're small. I thought you were taller." And everyone says that. But what they also say is, "You're exactly the same as you come across on the radio show." Because I don't have to put on an act. I'm not interested in image. You know, this is difficult stuff as it is, and it needs to be said in a way that people can grasp it and understand it, absorb it, process it, and then move forward with it.
Yeah.
And what I look like or what I sound like is irrelevant. It's what you do with the information that is what counts. And that's the most important thing.
Somebody said to me when they listened to the show and then they met us, and I was talking to them, and this lady said to me, it was actually Richard's wife, and she said to me, "Oh, that's really weird." And I said, "What's weird?" She said, I'm so used to hearing your voice on the radio show, and you're now in front of me talking exactly the same." And she just said, "It's just that's just kind of freaky, you know, in a nice way, you know."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well,
but why should it be different?"
Yeah, I said, "Look, we're no different than anybody else." I mean, as I said earlier on the show, for the people who tuned in later, you know, I was doing the fantastic task of using the plunger to unblock a toilet this morning, you know, because I had to be unblocked. Myself and Steve are just Joe Soaps that just feel that, you know, we want to try and do something to try and educate and find out what the truth is. And that's it, you know. I mean, we have lives, we've bills, we've mortgages, we've blocked toilets, you know, and that's just who we are, you know. And,
but the blocked toilet analogy is basically what we're doing on a global scale. We're unblocking the system and then draining the swamp.
Well, can I just add to that? I think we need a bigger plunger.
I would say no.
Well, you don't think there's a lot of crap out there then?
No, there's plenty of crap out there, and there'll always be plenty of crap out there. I just think sufficient tides have turned to enable a brighter future that's a lot nearer than people think.
Oh, good. Well, that's it.
We've made big progress. We've made alliances with bad guys. Because the reality is, like the Series 100 says, where are all the good guys? The answer is, there is none. Why? Because you have to create them. We've all been, none of us are angels.
Yeah.
Or what's perceived as angelic.
Yeah, true.
So, you have to then create it yourself to be the good guy, to be the way shower, to be the role model, to set the example, and lead the people into a brighter future.
But at the same time, people should never ever put us on a pedestal, because we're just ordinary people, people, you know.
That's it. You know, there's many waiting for the ETs. I've come up with a new thing to do with ETs. SAD. SAD, Saviour and Disempowerment, because that's basically what that program is. And the reality is, only we save us, nobody else. Not your God, not your Jesus, not your ETs, certainly not your politicians.
Well, the way we look at it, myself and Steve, is to say, we'll carry on doing what we're doing until we're saved. That way, you know, so there's no sitting back and saying, "Oh, we're going to sit back now and wait for the saviours." No, we'll carry on doing what we're doing until they come. And if they never come, we'll still carry on doing what we're doing.
Yeah, because there will be a change eventually. There's been change already. Massive changes. Some perhaps are more visible than others, but the
the change over the last 4 years has been enormous, because everything we asked for is already taken place. Yes, people want that reformation, and they want to see Bush in chains, and Cheney and Rumsfeld and the Tony Blairs, and etc., etc. But what if they already are? Would they announce it?
Probably not. I mean, it might happen eventually, but I wouldn't say they'd probably do it.
No, it's not going to be done that way. It's not going to be done that way. The minions are going. There was a big sieving out of people in Saudi Arabia yesterday. There's also been some sort of event where 8 of the royalty have been killed. Whether it's deliberate or not, we'll find out later. So there's cleansing going on in all countries. Announced recently there was 5,100 thrown out of their jobs, and another 600 either arrested or eliminated. That's still ongoing. I just haven't had updated figures, but there's things that are going on, and suddenly the president of Venezuela and the president of Chile is all being done for fraud and corruption. That's what you're going to see. That's what they're going to tell the public. That X has been done for fraud and corruption, but they've been done for a lot more than that.
Yeah,
that's what it's too much of a shock to the public to put out what's really going on.
Well, I'd like to see that over here in Ireland, because we don't. If it's going on, we're not hearing anything. That's the thing, and it's just the injustices that are going on over here. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking.
So, do you see a bright future?
The future, I see. In the 7.5 years that we've been doing the radio show, I have seen a mass amount of people waking up, and even family members who were kind of not woken up have woken up, and it's beginning to kick in on a few people. Now, there's people that will take longer, and some people never wake up, but I do see hopefully a light at the end of the tunnel. I'd like to be around to see it, but if I'm not around to see it, then my family will see it, and that's fair enough. Yeah, you played your role. The elites do the same thing. They plan for hundreds of years. They've been doing it for hundreds of years, generation after generation. So we're doing the same thing in the alt media. We'll just kind of keep doing what we're doing. But from even 7.5 years, the difference. And I know there's still understanding how it works, the hierarchical system, and the board of managers are panicking, but you tell them the minions to carry on and do your job. So that's why you're still seeing the minions doing what they're doing and trying to roll out the programs, because they know no different, because their bosses are telling them that everything's hunky-dory when it's not.
Compartmentalization again.
Yeah, exactly. So we just have to kind of, keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully the straw that will break the camel's back will happen sooner than later. Fingers crossed, where it's going to become more noticeable, and it'll be the 100 monkey, as we talked about. The 5 things. Funny enough, I was talking to somebody today about it: the sex, the politics, the religion, the education system, and the judicial system. I actually didn't mention the medical system there. Did I say the medical system?
Or the banking.
The banking,
that many systems.
There's that many systems. So all them, as we said yesterday, Thomas, it's the snowball effect, the 100 monkey. When it starts gathering its own momentum, then it won't be stopped, and then we just move on to the next one. And then the house of cards come down. I just hope that there isn't too many innocent casualties involved in it,
No, we all wish for that. But the 3 biggest issues are the 3 states or principalities that don't belong to countries but act inside of countries. And that's the religion and the Church of Rome, the financial centre in the City of London, and the militaristic City District of Columbia.
Yeah.
Once those three have collapsed, then all the rest will fall with it. Much has been done. Work's been done inside the Vatican. Work's been done inside of the City of London, where the Rothschilds are desperate to get back into control the City of London again. But the people have woken up. They've listened to what we've had to say, and are now sticking to it. They're not letting the Rothschilds back in. And so their little empire is collapsing. The Vatican Church is collapsing around itself because of the pedophilia and the fraud and corruption and the violence and the child trafficking and the mafia. It's all linked. And of course the military in America is being exposed along with the agencies on a weekly basis, daily basis even, that they're just part of a goose-stepping control system that the rest of the world, including Americans, are completely sick of.
I would just say to the people listening to the show and who listen to this podcast to just do something. Just don't sit back and listen to the shows and go back to your life. Just do something, even if it's one thing a week. Do something, because it's ripples in the pond. And if everybody does something, the ripples, it goes out and it affects everything else. So
tsunami.
So just do something. Don't just listen to the podcast and then go back to your life. Do something, help somebody, do something, get the message out there, link up with other like-minded people and, try and put something together, a plan of attack, even if it's a time banking system or whatever. But just do something. Don't just listen to the podcast. Just do something, and it'll speed up. The process will speed up. The more people do, the quicker things will happen.
Right. We've probably come to the end. I'm going to ask you to give out some links or where people can listen to you or where people can come in March to come and see you and hear you.
Right. Well, the website is www.oimradio.com, and you can pop over there, and the actual podcast of the show that we did tonight, I think you'll find that interesting, Thomas, because he does kind of agree with things that you say regarding shadow self and being in balance and all that kind of stuff, which is quite interesting. So the podcast is up there. We'll do the YouTube tomorrow. We broadcast every Sunday 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. GMT. That's where you find the live stream, but the podcasts are always available shortly after the show, and then we put it on YouTube. For the Open Mind Conference, it's in March. I think it's the 2nd, 3rd and 4th. It's actually advertised on our website as well. And we'll be doing a talk giving the problem and solutions, again, using the fluid belief system. If you want to know more about the fluid belief system, go to YouTube. We have a video on there talking about what it is. And on our talk, we talk about psychology, and we talk about the teenage mind and all that kind of stuff. And show people how to wake people up. If you want a method on how to wake people up, if you've had no success, we show you a solution of how to do it and how to approach it using psychology. If you choose to do it, and that's what we'll do. So that hopefully Basis Conference and DVD will be out, and the chat will be next March. So that's it. And thanks a lot for having me on. It was very enjoyable. We had a great chat, really enjoyable, and onwards and upwards.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for coming on. It's been enlightening. Like it was yesterday. You said we should have recorded yesterday.
That's it, exactly, yeah. 3 hours yesterday and 3 hours tonight. I tell you, people start asking questions, Thomas. I
think Chloe is.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. It's all man love.
Yeah, when's my time?
Yeah, no, it's all good. Well, see, this what happens when you speak to somebody. I was with somebody
like-minded
for 2 hours, like-minded people. When you get into a group of people that are like-minded, the conversation flows, and you look at your watch and go, "Holy damn, 3 hours has gone past." Yeah. That's the great thing when you get like-minded people, and that's what people need to look for.
Absolutely.
thank you so much for coming on. I hope you've enjoyed the show.
Brilliant.
We'll be. I've got two choices here in music. Do I go with the George Michael or do I go with the Spirit in the Sky?
Go with the Spirit in the Sky. The George Michael one is just, again, he's a fantastic musician. And I actually did play, was in a band with his bass player, played in a band. But go with the Spirit in the Sky because that will be my funeral song. So
Nice.
when I kick the bucket, that's what I want played at my funeral.
Right, okay. Mine's an Everton song, as you might know.
Not I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles, is it?
No, it's called Here We Go.
Oh, okay. Very good. Very appropriate.
Yeah. Right, okay. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back as normal on Thursday with the normal show, if we have a normal show. And this archive should be up in the next half hour or so. Thanks to Alan James, and thank you for listening. My name's Thomas Williams. Bye for now.